Good evening, members. Good evening, council officers and members of the public. Before we start this evening's meeting, I wanted to announcements that I ought to make. First of all, will you please turn off your mobile phones? Otherwise, there is a little rule that anyone whose mobile phone goes off pays £10 to the Veterans Charity. So be warned. The second thing is, I'm not expecting a fire alarm this evening, but in the event that the alarm does go off, please leave either by the entrance you came in, which is straight out that way, or you can go through this fire exit door here, in the event of a fire. The final thing I'd like to say is this. It might be as well if members of the public in particular refrain from any interjections, any booing, any applauding, clapping, or otherwise creating a noise during the debate. Now, there are good reasons for that. First of all, this meeting is recorded, so any remarks you may make, even if they're only aside, are bound to find themselves audible above the level of rustling papers. So please remember that. And the other reason to do it is so that I can conduct the meeting in a proper, orderly fashion without distraction. If anyone does persist in any behaviour which offends that ruling, they will be asked to leave the chamber. I make that clear now. Thank you. First item on the agenda then is prayers, led by Canon Michael Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. O God our Father, we pray for the officers and members of this council as they discuss important matters tonight. We pray for our Chairman, Councillor David James. With the end of the school year, we pray for our children and also teachers, parents and governors, giving thanks for improved results in our secondary schools. May all engaged in education have a vision and energy to sustain it. We pray for carers and all who live and work in the residential and nursing homes of our district. May we all this summer have the opportunity of a time of refreshment and relaxation. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We'll then move on to item 2, which is to the minutes, to sign the minutes of the annual meeting of the council held on the 17th of May 2017. Do I have your authority to sign those minutes? Great. Item 3 on the agenda, apologies for absence.
Councillors Richard McElroy, Nigel Carr, Barry Frenchman, Daventry and Devon.
Thank you. Item 4, declaration of members' interest. You may declare them now, or if you are interested in any particular, have an interest in any particular item, immediately before that item comes up for discussion. Done? Item 5, Chairman's announcements. I've had quite a busy time in our first 4 months or so of office, which kicked off on the 20th of May with the Wellingborough Mayor's Masquerade Ball, which was a very enjoyable event, and done very properly, as one would expect from Wellingborough. Thoroughly enjoyable. Janet and I really enjoyed that immensely. And I hope we can at least replicate it when we have our ball sometime at the beginning of next year. Then I attended Northamptonshire's Healthy Schools Week orienteering at Brixworth Country Park, which was to demonstrate to school children the benefits of healthy eating. And I learnt a little bit myself, being an egg, chips and beans man. But anyway, that was good. Very windy day. Then, of course, going into June, in the build-up to the women's tour, we had the judging of the women's tour window displays in Daventry town. Shopkeepers and others were invited to supply a decorated cardboard cutout, which we supplied, of a cycle to see who could come up with the best on the day. And as usual with these competitions, you always end up with two, which is very difficult to decide. But anyway, we did do so, and very pleased at the participation in that event. I must say that when I was in Thrapston on Sunday, they didn't have a competition for the women's cycle tour when Thrapston went through there, but they did have two bikes in the town council offices which had knitted jackets on them, which was absolutely superb. No one had thought of that over here. Anyway, in the build-up to the Grand Depart on the 7th of June, we had a Fit Fest in Daventry High Street. We had a pop group and other activities going on at the time. We also had another Fit Fest event a few days later on a Sunday in New Street Recreation Ground with the Crazy Mountain Bikes. I did not believe that it was possible to do those sort of things on a bicycle. How someone can jump from a level of 4 feet in the air and balance on something of only that thickness, and then progressively get up to the top of the van roof, and then jump down onto a small bar of about the same width. I wouldn't have thought it was possible, but there you are. It was well worth watching, very entertaining. And just before that, I went to the Daventry Funding Fair, Daventry and South Northampton Funding Fair, Toaster Racecourse. Superb venue for this, and an extremely well attended event. Voluntary organisations either demonstrating what they actually do or how to go about raising funds. And of course the lottery, the local lottery that we eventually hope to set up. Then the big day comes, the 7th of June, start of the women's tour. I've seen some big events in Daventry over the years, but I don't think I've seen one so well attended as that. Not only was the town very vibrant, but it was bustling the entire length of the high street with school children and others. And you'll see the slideshow on there, which I can't seem to always it's on here, of course. So we met cycling champions, national champions, regional champions, Olympic champions, and they came from all over the world, not just Britain and Europe, but elsewhere in the world too, America, Australia, and so on. And they started off here in Daventry on their first leg of the tour, which was ultimately to end in Kettering, crisscrossing the county. I think it was about 92 was it? Yes. Quite a long way, a bit further than I could bike, even when I was a young man. In one day. And then, of course, they moved on from here to other counties Staffordshire, North Warwickshire, Derbyshire and so on, culminating in London with all the pomp that one has in London, and a 25 kilometre, I think it was the Pink Ribbon event, which was to raise money for breast cancer awareness in London, and participated in by, I think it was 1,000 amateurs involved in that. But it was really a wonderful event, and I must thank the senior officers of the council and other members of the council staff for having the vision to see this through, because we were very fortunate to be able to host that particular event. And a big thanks to Councillor Alan Hills and Councillor Wayne Howard for their persistence in seeing this through. Now, there's a good reason for holding an event like that, because it promotes Daventry, not only on the regional stage, the national stage, the international stage too, because there are companies in Daventry and district that export goods all over the world, world with a capital W, doesn't end at Dover. And they do it on a daily basis without giving it a second thought. And if you go across the county, you'll find that in other towns, in East Northants for example, they're doing exactly the same thing. After all, they put the Weetabix on your table, and the wheat is sourced within 30 miles of that. So we are well known anyway. We need to grab a bigger share of being well known. So that's the women's tour, and you're seeing the slides there. You won't see a picture of me there because I'm somewhere underneath that there scaffolding. And I was very sad really that the young lady who had designed the starting flag, there's not a photograph of her either there, and I did feel a bit sad about that. I must admit, one of the reasons that I didn't wave the starting flag about too much was because it was a considerable length, and I was aware that there were cyclists about to start or some couple of metres away, and it could have caused an immense pile of an accident if I was stuck the flag out and waved it. But somewhere under that scaffolding, that's where I was anyway. So, a very worthwhile event. It's the 4th time it's been held in the county, and I do hope that we shall be able to host it again next year, and preferably to host the start again, because we got the best of the deal here. It may have finished the first leg in Kettering, but I think compared with what we had the best of the deal, which was the starting off of the event. As I say, I haven't seen as many people as that. Not if you were to add when the old market used to be held on the market, when the Mop Fair was in the High Street, or when we had May Day on the market. If you combined all three, you wouldn't have as many people as turned on that day. So it's extremely worthwhile. Thank you. Moving on then, and I'll try this as quick as I can. I attended the opening of Norton Community Centre, which is a fine example of what a community can do when it's allowed to use the grey matter and work on its own initiative. It must be the best community centre, I would think, certainly in the district, and possibly in the county, I would think. It's an excellent facility. And then I opened Daventry Sailing Club in Clubhouse. Daventry District Council, along with South Northants Council, made a grant towards the renewal of part of the clubhouse and the refurbishment. And it's rather unique because Boddington Water does actually lie half within South Northants Council and half within Daventry District Council. We got the clubhouse on our side. They made us extremely welcome. We had a lovely afternoon there, thoroughly enjoyable. And I have to say this, when you talk about sailing club, and I believe there were some members, when this was debated in the chamber about it being a bit like here. Banbury Sailing Club is a family sailing club. They were lovely people, ordinary people. They had, I think it was something like 60 youngsters from the age of 6 to 18 who were interested in learning to sail. So it's an open access club and a very nice place. And of course, what I then attended the East Northamptonshire Council reception for the installation of the new leader for East Northampton Council. Very different. It wasn't a church service, it was conducted by a registrar inside the council chamber. We've got a good guy there, I like it. Then something very grand, installation of the Mayor of Peterborough at the cathedral there, which was held on the same day that they had a reenactment event going on in the town. It was a really, really boiling hot day when we went there, and I was glad to get inside the coolness of the church. But it was really quite something. Top notch, beautiful choir, everything. And of course, good tuck in afterwards. Raising the flag for Armed Forces Day, that's our duty to do that, and we did. Attending the opening of Daventry, Northampton College, Daventry campus, the new campus there, the celebration of achievement, awards. Very, very well arranged by the college. I must take my hat off to them. Lovely building too, and some wonderful achievements by some wonderful students. And then beginning this month, presentation of long service awards to staff. I only had only one to award to. I think that was Marina Watkins for 22 years, I think, service with the council, and we like to demonstrate that we value council staff because that's quite some achievement, and it's in the interest of all employers to do so as far as their staff goes. The number one rule: when you get a good employee, you look after them. Then the Mayor of Northampton Mayoral Charity Sunday Service, installation of the new mayor. Attended that. All Saints Church, Northampton. Nice choir, lovely service. I'll say no more about that one. I spoke to the Rotary Club on the 10th of July. And then on the 14th, opened the refurbished changing rooms at Daventry Tigers Bowls Club. That's on the Timken estate. I'm not one for barbecue food, but I must admit, that's the best barbecue I've been to for a long, long time. And it was nice to see those changing rooms go up. It only seems like yesterday that I reviewed their original planning application, as we have to do as local councillors. And then the next minute, this building is erected. I gather it took them something like from 10:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon to erect the new changing room facilities there. It really was some achievement. Nice event. Daventry District Scouts AGM, I attended that this month. I didn't know the Scouts movement was that big in this area, but I'm wiser now, and they are going to ask me to attend another event before the end of the year. I hope it's not in the dead of winter and it's a camping event. So I look forward to that. Then on Saturday last, we had for the 7th year, Daventry Family Cinema event at the Country Park. And we had two good movies on. Lego Batman movie, a film called Moana. They were fantasy action and fantasy adventure films respectively, and the local kids loved it. They came along with their inflatable chairs and their munchies and everything else, and the weather was very kind to us to kick off with. They really liked it. I know this personally, how those youngsters enjoyed that event. And then, of course, the films were screened twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. The weather turned unkind, and I think it ended up, because I'd gone home by that time, it ended up with a few families watching it like a drive-in movie in the car. So, because it was raining bad. And then Sunday last, attended the Mayor of Thrapston civic service. Lovely church, Thrapston Church. Very nice service too. And we had a nice tea there too. Next Saturday, I'm going to the Kerala Carnival boat race in support of India UK 2017. Then I'm going to visit Bolton Allotments. And then after that, the Homestart 21st birthday celebrations. 6th of September, High Show, Summer Garden Party. And on the 29th, we should be hosting a Macmillan coffee morning here at DDC offices in aid of the Chairman's charity. Also, and I'd like to finish by saying this, I'm very pleased to report that Councillor Sean Connors has been taking part in the 1 million steps challenge. So he probably got sore feet. And I believe that he's done about 500,000 steps thus far. And this is in aid of Macmillan Cancer Care. Now I do know from the Just Giving website that members have made some contributions there. But please, don't make me have to do a Bob Geldof. Please keep the money flowing. There is scope for more donations for this worthwhile charity and for this worthwhile endeavour of Councillor Connors. So please see if you can make a donation to that. You can either do it through Just Giving, or you can check cash to Fiona Rye, the Chief Executive's personal assistant, to deal with. Now I know I've gone on a long time, but that will be all on Chairman's announcements. So we then move on to...
Chair,
Yes. Yep.
may I take the opportunity to thank you for that fascinating account of all the exciting things that you've been doing. I wonder, however, if for future meetings you might like to put it in writing. We've now been at this meeting for 25 minutes and we haven't discussed any business yet.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Might I say that this is made an either side, and I should go on for even more side, and I should put.
Here. Not here.
Right, we now move on to questions under Council Procedure Rules 10 and 11. And the first question is from Aidan Ramsey to Councillor Chris Miller, Leader of the Council. Now, Aidan Ramsey's not here.
Chair, Aidan Ramsey, one of business in London at the moment.
Yeah. So would you like me to read the question? Right, here's the question from Aidan Ramsey to Councillor Chris Miller. During and after the recent general election campaign, I was contacted by numerous people who were registered to vote in the Daventry constituency, but were also living away at the time. It appears that many did not receive their postal vote, even though they had registered for one. And there was also concern expressed about the handling of their correspondence by DDC, who they found to be unhelpful. One gentleman who contacted me from Australia claimed that this is not the first time this happened, and at the previous general election he had only received his postal vote the day before the election took place, leaving him unable to vote in time. It is concerning that people are left unable to vote despite being entitled to, and quite unfair to those individuals. What can DDC change or work on to assure these people that they will not face this problem again in the future? Is it possible for DDC to make contact with those affected in order to ensure that they do not become even more distanced from our political system? Councillor Miller.
Thank you much indeed, Chairman. I'd like to first of all thank Mr Ramsey for his question and also congratulate him, actually, Chairman, on coming second in the recent Daventry Strictly Dancing competition, which is becoming a very successful annual event, I say, in Daventry. There are over 400 people in the audience there. I mean, Mr Ramsey did very well, obviously, coming second. And I also like to thank the Cape Fisher Academy. They put this event on every year. It's grown in popularity all the time. I just wanted to mention that about Mr Ramsey.
Thank you.
In terms of answering his question, postal vote packs were sent to all those registering for postal votes on the 19th of May. This was the earliest opportunity to dispatch them, given the timetable dictated by the snap election timetable and the printer's capacity. Further postal vote packs were dispatched on the 27th of May, the 30th of May and the 2nd of June for those applying after the first issue. A small number of inquiries for postal voting were made after the final deadline, and those voters were encouraged to make proxy voting arrangements if they weren't able to vote in person. Although the snap election was called at short notice, there was much publicity nationally and locally to encourage registration and early application for postal votes. Overseas voters do not automatically get a postal or proxy vote. They have to apply for one. On the day the election was called, overseas voters were emailed and encouraged to make early application for postal or proxy voting. A reminder was sent to those who hadn't responded on the 23rd of May, particularly promoting proxy voting given the tight timescale. The timing of the general election, so close to the county council elections in May, caused scheduling difficulties for election officers and capacity problems for printers up and down the country. Representations have been made to the Cabinet Office and the Electoral Commission advising them of these difficulties. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on, question from Shay Brennan to Councillor Chris Miller, Leader of the Council. Is Shay Brennan here? Right, I'll read the question. It was a nice one. Why are you not listening to the people of Daventry and stopping this nonsense of an idea before it costs any more of the community's valuable money? Right. I'll do all of these questions then, because they're more or less about the same topic. And it might be best if I go through each question where someone who has introduced the question wants to say it, they can. Otherwise I will. And then Councillor Miller will respond in a concise reply to those who submitted those questions. Right. Question from Stu Pickersgill to Councillor Miller, Chris Miller, Leader of the Council. Is Stu Pickersgill here? No? Right. I guess my questions would be like many others. One is, why spend taxpayers' money on a project or to nowhere when we have a town that is slipping back in years and not going forward? Surely we need something to entice people into Daventry instead of driving them away. The canal arm will do nothing for Daventry. There are more and more houses being built in Daventry and nobody is catering for shopping here. Instead, more and more shops are closing, probably because the rates here are too high. People in council don't have to shop in Daventry as they don't live here. Tell Mr Miller and Mr Over to go and butt a suite, a shirt and a tie here. I think that must mean buy a suit, a shirt and a tie here. I could go on for ages, but time won't allow. Instead of 8 million of our money being spent on something that is little more than a ditch, build a retail park, then maybe we could have better facilities to shop. Next question. Question from Chris Morgan to Councillor Miller, Leader of the Council. Is Chris Morgan here?
I'm here, if you'd like to read about, please make it probably more central.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I understand correctly, the Canal and Waterway agencies do not support the canal line, and so will not allow a viaduct of some form to top up the canal. If this is correct, A, how will the canal water level be maintained, as the topography will not allow a flat canal course? Who's responsible for looking after the canal and keeping it clean, from shopping trolleys to blue algae? How will the water circulation be maintained to prevent it from becoming stagnant? Who will police the actual arm to prevent free mooring and illegal fishing down its length? 2. There is an underground stream drain that runs where the marina complex has been earmarked. How will the risk of flooding be maintained, not just by this underground stream, but also during heavy rain or if a lock fails? 3. Regards the financial side of things, it appears through the several reports that have been circulated that funding for the canal arm has been vague, with businesses not wanting to fund the project. A. How do you hope to pay for extra costs for not only when the project goes over budget, but also to fund the other questions I have written here? B. Where will the funding then come from to fund building new infrastructure that is needed for this town? As it appears that we are building a lot of new houses, but not the schools, doctors and entertainment to support the new population. How do you hope to compete with other marinas in the area at Braunston, Welton, Wilton Locks, Crick and Yelvertoft, to name a few? 4. I must admit that I have not read about all of the information about this canal arm, but I would like to know how this idea came into being. A. Was a questionnaire produced and completed by canal users about the idea? B. Has the idea been tested in full? I find it strange that a person, family on holiday, would want to go down what is essentially a 2-mile dead end for an overnight stop, to only pilot the barge back to join the main canal. My estimate would be that with a speed limit of 5 miles per hour, that this would take around half an hour to complete the journey, including mooring. But adding locks into the mix would increase the time spent traversing the canal arm, depending upon the amount of locks and queues to use them. So my point would be, would they pilot the barge all that way and spend all that time to move on the following day, when there are other marinas on the route they are taking? C, if you are hoping for people to stay longer to use the proposed new facilities, then would it be a better idea to build hotels? 5, would the council hold a referendum on the canal arm with full details about the project and a for and against arguments? So that's that question. The next question is from Lucy Wilson, Councillor Chris Miller, leader of the council. Is Lucy Wilson here? Right, not attending. Here we go then. Question from Lucy Wilson. I would like to ask the council the following. How are they able to justify spending over £8 million on a 1 kilometre stretch of water that is not connected to anything? It has always been my understanding that money to fund the proposed canal arm, the original one that was joined up, was coming from investors and not from the reserves of the council. What has changed? Quite apart from the fact that the whole idea is, in my opinion, ridiculous in the extreme, I am not prepared to countenance the spending of what is effectively my money and everyone else who pays council taxes on such an ill-conceived plan. If, as we are told, people who intend to build homes in that area want this boating lake trolley park installed before they build, I suggest they pay for it. As for the notion that it will turn Daventry into a mecca for boat-loving tourists, the local area is already well provided with access to canals, and I don't seem to have heard that Bournemouth Marina, for example, is fighting off hordes of visitors. Next question. Question from Stuart Coe to Councillor Chris Miller. Stuart Coe? Right, not a 10. Oh, nice, easy one. If instead, this is a question from Stuart Coe. If instead of constructing a section of canal, DDC were to create an extension of the country park along the route of the canal, suitably planted with trees and shrubs, and with a track for pedestrians and cyclists, how would the cost compare with the £8.7 million cost of a section of canal, please? Next question from Wendy Ingram. Right. Would you like to?
Yes, please.
Oh, good, thank you.
I just think it gives the face to the people rather than it being yours. Thank you. Just for a bit of background, I grew up in a place called Anderton, which is on the Trenton Mersey Canal, which has a boat lift. So it gives me the knowledge of what it's like to live in a place with a boat lift. We live in a democracy where councillors are elected and are then supposed to represent the views of the people of Daventry, which I'm one. However, councillors are ignoring the democratic process, as a referendum in 2010 showed that 76% of people didn't want the canal spur. Despite the relatively poor turnout for the referendum, is it not arrogant of them to impose their own views over the views of the people who elected them as their representatives? Why are councillors not following the democratic process and representing the true views of the people of Daventry? Surely this sets a dangerously undemocratic precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller will reply in due course.
Thank you.
Right, next question from Chris Myers to Councillor Chris Miller. Chris Myers.
I'm here.
Oh, well done.
My question is, will the leader of the council give us an assurance that if the proposal to commit £8.7 million to the construction of part of the canal arm is accepted this evening, that no further money, the use of which will be in the control of DDC, such as reserves or CIL money from developers, that this will be used for the completion of the canal arm?
Thank you. Next question from Stephen Dabbs to Councillor Chris Miller. Stephen Dabbs?
Yep, that's me.
Yep. Fire away.
So as to the council leader and all district councillors, I continue to be dismayed that the Daventry Canal extension saga still moves forward rather than being put into the black bin for non-recyclable rubbish. It beggars belief that in these times of severe financial constraints that you all, with some exceptions, can still consider this project merits any kind of priority for discussion, never mind expenditure. I ask you all to search deeply into your consciences, putting aside any party loyalties, and ask yourselves whether there's no better or urgent cause which is more worthy of financing. I know the current canal development, this super-sized ditch from nowhere to nowhere, is to cost £8.7 million and will be funded from council resources. That means there will be £8.7 million not available for funding something else. Perhaps the leader, or any other councillor for that matter, can advise what else DDC might purchase for £8.7 million. How many affordable or social houses could be built for £8.7 million? How many additional parking spaces could be created in Daventry's housing estates for £8.7 million? How many traffic calming measures could be initiated down Ashby Road, where I live, for £8.7 million? How many CCTV cameras could be installed for £8.7 million?
Thank you, Stephen. Next question from Christine Fitchett to Councillor Chris Miller.
I would let you
Let me
be
read
so
that.
able to speak. Am I allowed to add something later?
No. Right, here we are. Question from Christine Fitchett. I understand that DDC hopes that the section of canal it proposes to build will eventually be extended to link with the Grand Union Canal. Completing the canal arm, as originally envisaged, will cost, according to DDC's consultants, an additional £15 million. I therefore ask the Leader of the Council from where this 15 million will be found and when. I would be grateful if the Leader of the Council could name the organisations from which he expects support for this project and give us his reasons for expecting applications to them will be successful. The next question. Question from Graham Morris to Council. Graham Morris.
The justification for using 8.7 million of public money to build the canal basin appears to be that the future revenue from visitors will provide an income greater than the original outlay. Could the Leader of the Council please provide a copy of the calculations used to arrive at this conclusion? My own calculations suggest that the payback period will be in the region of 115 years, assuming that the maintenance cost of the basin is funded from sources other than revenue from visitors, and that the canal arm is linked to the basin to the Grand Union Canal. If the canal arm is not built, and there seems to be no guarantee of this, then I predict that the basin will never cover its costs.
Yeah. And the next question is from Judith Morris to Councillor Chris Miller, Leader of the Council. Judith
Yes,
Morris?
I'm here.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
The council is insistent that the canal will attract tourists who will spend money in our town. Canal boat ownership and rental is popular in the UK. The pace of life is slower on a narrowboat, giving the opportunity to escape the rat race for a while. Appreciation of nature, peace and tranquility and industrial heritage are all part of the attraction of our canals. None of these aspects will feature in the Daventry development. My question is specifically, what would be the attraction for tourists? If the project is completed, and also in the event that the basin is never connected to the Grand Union Canal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and first of all I want to thank Mr. Brennan, Mr. Picklesgill, Mr. Morby, Lucy Wilson, Mr. Coe, Mr. Ingram, Mr. Myers, Mr. Dabbs, Mr. Fitchett, I think it's Mr. and Mrs. Morris, I hope it's Mr. and Mrs. Morris, for their questions. As the Chairman said, it makes sense for all the questions to be read out and then a consolidated response to be given on this one subject. Firstly, I'd like to say I'm very pleased, Chairman, to see local democracy in action tonight. Had the decision the Council needs to make fall into an arm of central government, it would have been treated as a minor matter and resolved in some office out of public sight. Here the decision is made in full public view, and rightly so. And the report before our Council tonight actually is a very open and transparent report. So we're not trying to hide anything away, and that's why I like it. This is about democracy and transparent democracy. The questions are really in two types, Chairman. Some ask why spend money on the canal arm rather than something else. Allied to this are questions about how the decision should be made, and the second type of questions about details of the scheme. Dealing with first, Chairman, the question of why spend money on the canal arm, it is important to realise this is not about short-term financial return, or even short-term jobs close to the canal. It is about a transformational project which will help create a new image for Daventry, and thus help secure high-quality investment into the town and district for generations to come. At the same time, provide a high-quality space for people to enjoy being in, and which provides a range of new habitats for wildlife. The proposed canal arm with an inclined plane would be a unique visitor attraction in the UK, and as such would doubtlessly result in large numbers of visits, some of which would spill over into Daventry Town Centre and into other tourist attractions in and around our town and district. Typically, it requires one anchor attraction to draw visitors into an area, after which other attractions can benefit. However, this is only part of the benefit of the canal arm. Probably more important is the ability of such landmarks to create identity for a place and thus encourage inward investment. Simply people having heard of a place is the first step to choosing to invest in it. Having heard positive things, it is important if the investment is to be of a high quality. I recognise this may seem uncertain, numbers cannot be put to it, so people ask if it is meaningful. Yet this view also lies behind decisions such as the creation of the Angel of the North. I used to see the Angel of the North a lot because my parents used to live in Newcastle upon Tyne, which at the time attracted a lot of opposition when it was first muted, but now the Angel is recognised as a marker of Tyneside. Just one example of how things can change the nature of places. Of course, people say fairly that not only are the benefits of the complete project difficult to measure, the complete project might not be achieved. That is true. However, with ambition and determination, I believe this council can secure the complete project in time. We will certainly put ourselves in a strong position to apply for lottery funding the next time round. A programme such as Living Landmarks comes around, and there may well be other opportunities. We are working with central government to secure the best outcomes we can for the district, and this may open up avenues not currently available. For this reason, I must say to Mr Myers that it is possible that further investment of funds that the council has control of may well take place. If the council is able to secure additional investment into the area from public or private sources, why would it not make use of them? And that's the point, it's about what the deal is. I think this covers the questions of why the project is, in my view, a priority, Chairman. All of this said, I should explain that under the Council's project management and financial procedures, all the Council's been asked to do tonight is put monies in the programmes. No more than £300,000 of the main canal arm budget could actually be spent until a full business plan has come back to a future full council meeting for consideration and a final decision taken. I think that's an important point, Chairman. The final decision has not been taken tonight. This is an interim step, and then the business plan, if agreed tonight, will come back at the future council meeting, and then all members can take a full decision based upon all the facts, and we've given every opportunity to see if the scheme can succeed or not. On the related issue of decision making, I believe in representative democracy where elected members take decisions on behalf of their community with full knowledge of the relevant facts. I don't think that referenda are generally a good way of resolving matters. They force people to take a black or white view on something which is normally many shades of grey. I think a good example of that is on the EU referendum. On both sides of the argument, we know that people had a, probably in fact weren't telling the facts really. They were both on both sides of the argument, the facts were not being told. And what the outcome was, the point I'm trying to say here is about having the information and the facts to make the decision rather than spin put out the public opinion on either side, which maybe misleads the public. I think it's important we do it on the basis of factual information, Chairman, and not the basis of conjuncture. The second set of issues are detailed questions about how the canal arm would work. Without wishing to detain the council for too long, I'll try and address it as well. Mr Picklesfield asked why the council did not build a retail park so people have better shopping options. Well, I'm very pleased to say that this will happen. The council's development partner, Henry Booth, is currently awaiting the decision on its planning application for the Site 5 development on the northwestern side of Daventry Town Centre. There is a very good demand from retailers, which is very encouraging in this current climate, and very good news for Daventry. And we look forward to construction starting next year. I think it's important now, because actually retailers won't come to a place unless they actually believe in the future of the place. So it's very, very pleased to see that we're having so much interest in Daventry. Mr Morby raised the question about design and cooperation of the canal arm, operation of the canal arm. To the first part, I must point out that canal waterway bodies do support the canal arm. The Canal and River Trust have specifically given approval for its logo to appear on the publicity material. And on the publicity material, you will see their logo on there, as has the Inland Waterways Association. I think that's important to say that, Chairman, because there has been misinformation out there stating that both those bodies do not support this. They do support this. In terms of water supply and circulation, this will be from a stream in the council's ownership and from back pumping water used in lots, if there are any. The full details can be found in the water supply strategy published with the other planning application information. There's also a detailed flood risk assessment within the planning application materials. Both of these can be found on the council website. I can also deal with the issue about schools, doctors and entertainment for the growing town, and this town is going to continue to grow for many years in terms of population. In fact, the council has been instrumental in ensuring that sufficient and good quality schools are provided, even though we're not the local education authority, because we believe that education forms the foundation of the larger Daventry, better education offer. And I think people in Daventry over the years have not been well served in that field, Chair. So the building of the primary school in Monkswell, the construction contract has recently been let. For years it has helped with existing secondary schools to improve their reputation and offer, and has helped to secure the new Swan School for Daventry. The council also a key player in ensuring suitable doctors are in place. I've personally been involved in helping get to a better surgery in Brixworth, and we are at work now on better facilities in Daventry. I have to say, Chairman, in this world we live in, that it's very, very hard, especially in health, to try and get facilities delivered locally, but it can be done with determination and with a focus. Entertainment is partly a matter for the market, so the council is still involved, and the Town Centre Vision Site 1 scheme is intended to include a cinema, which I know many people want to see. As far as competition is concerned, there are many marinas along the Grand Union and Oxford Canals, and generally these work very well together. More marinas means more boats, and therefore more potential visits to the facilities Daventry will offer to boaters, and therefore more boats to watch for those who normally stay on dry land. The idea for the canal arm originated in a suggestion made as part of the preparation of the Daventry Town Centre vision. It has subsequently been widely tested, including with boaters. Further analysis will support the business plan if members choose to proceed with the project tonight. In relation to Mr. Coe's specific question, I do not have a figure of his suggested approach. There is a very wide range of things the council could do, and clearly it would not make sense to commission costing them all. Much the same applies to Mr. Dabb's questions, with the additional comment that such ideas cannot be costed in the abstract, just as the canal arms cost would vary greatly depending on where it was. For clarity, Mr. Morris's question is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the reasoning for the canal arm. I hope my earlier comments have made this clear. To Mrs. Morris, I would like to suggest that a trip along the Daventry arm would offer at least a pleasant trip along the edge of the country park, a ride in the unique incline plane, UK incline plane I should say, and a visit to a town centre to restock and use the facilities. And this is for future generations, Chairman. We're talking about not our generation, but the generations to come. And this is an opportunity that Daventry has, and if we can make it work, we should make it work, Chairman. I have spoken at length, Chairman, because there's a lot of questions. That's why I want to do it in one lot, really, rather than answer each question as we go along. And I look forward to discussion about this proposal later in the meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Then we move on to item 6.2, to answer questions from members of the council, if any. And there is a question from Councillor Ritchie to Councillor Chris Miller, Leader of the Council. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. Will the Leader of the Council make a full statement on the sequence of events that led to the short canal proposal made to the strategy group on 6th July, including information on the precise demands of the Churchfields developer regarding the need for certainty. Certainty is in inverted commas is a quote from the report that went to the strategy group. But regarding the need for certainty over plans for the canal and in what month these demands were first made. Secondly, the date on which a contract was signed with Vic Everard for work on the feasibility study on a short canal. With your permission, Chair, I will withdraw the next bullet point as officers have answered it for me. Why the Council was not informed about the nature of this work until nearly 6 months after the consultant's report had been received. Which members of the Planning Committee were aware of the proposal for a short canal and the work which had been commissioned from Vic Everard when the planning application for the canal arm was discussed on the 11th of January of this year? What instructions were given, when and by whom, to restrict information on the short canal plan, and why no mention of such an important DDC project was made to the Labour Group during its briefing with the Chief Executive in May? I withdraw the final bullet point in the following, submitting this question. I received that information.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to first of all thank Councillor Ritchie for his questions. always welcome. I first observed that his fifth question around the planning committee is irrelevant because since funding the schemes doesn't play a part in the assessment of their planning merits. So that's not really relevant to the question you're asking there, Councillor Ritchie. When in the planning committee, members would not expect to see how a developer was intending to fund their scheme or in what stages they would carry it out, and nor should they. That's the first point. The work on costs and options was commissioned from a consultant in January 2017. It took the form of a variation to the existing contract with that consultant. They worked on the planning application for the canal arm and proved to be cost effective and efficient. As to the dates of the meetings with the developer, high-level meetings were held on the following dates. The 24th of October 2016, the 9th of December 2016, the 6th of March this year, 2017, the 28th of April this year, 2017, and the 25th of July earlier this week, 2017. There have also been a number of technical meetings as well as the usual pre-application meetings. The developers wrote to the Chief Executive on the 9th of November 2016, outlining their concerns about the upstanding boat lift and confirming their desire to achieve a rapid conclusion about the delivery of the canal arm. This is a position they have reiterated subsequently. There was no instruction to restrict information on the short canal arm plan. The information received was carefully worked on by officers to ensure a rounded report was presented to the strategy group. As can be seen, this contains far more than just the consultant's numbers. The shorter canal option is not a new scheme. It is part of the scheme already considered by members, and as such required no discussion at the Labour meeting with the Chief Executive. Now obviously I'm not involved in any of that, because I'm going to be very clear, Councillor Rich, I don't get involved in meetings between your group and the Chief Executive. On a simplistic level, this should be considered as phase one of the scheme, which received planning consent in January this year. And I think you've been provided a copy of the contract. So thank you. In short, the proposals which fall to be considered tonight have been subject to proper consideration, and it now falls to members themselves to consider them and take a decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Miller.
Chair.
Councillor Ritchie.
I would just like to a follow-up question on that. Would Councillor Miller not accept that although what has been proposed to the strategy group is but one part of a bigger proposal that has been considered in the past, it is clearly such a divergence in terms of what would be done and how it would be funded that it is something of considerable importance to this council. I think that is evident from the public interest that there is in this meeting tonight. And did he not think that would have been something that he should have shared with his colleagues, rather than keeping it for, I say, nearly 6 months before we were put in the picture as to what the council's money had been spent on? I fully accept that councillors may wish to have private discussions, but when it comes to commissioning a consultant and spending the council's money, surely at that stage, we as councillors have a right to know.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to respond to Councillor Ritchie there. First of all, Councillor Ritchie, I have to say that this scheme is not a new scheme. This actual proposal has been on the book since 2004, and since that time, it's come along. You would have seen in my earlier response about, obviously, the developers have wanted some more clarity about the canal arm. And clearly what we're doing here is, I have to say, I don't want to create the debate for later on tonight. I think some of the questions you're asking there will come out in the debate later. All I would say is I'm quite satisfied that we've acted absolutely appropriately here, to be very transparently. And if you look at the report, which you received at the strategy group, you can hardly say anything's been hidden away there. We've been very transparent about the risk, but obviously more information may come out in the debate. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Let me move on to agenda item 7.1, which is a motion under Council Procedure Rule 12, and it's to consider the following motion, notice of which has been given under Council Procedure Rule 12 by Councillors Barry Frenchman and Ken Ritchie. Councillor Frenchman isn't here this evening.
Chairman, yours, please.
Councillor Osborne.
Chairman, this is, in my opinion, one of the most sensible motions that's come to the council for a long while. Certainly, as chairman of planning, I very much support it. Very sensible. The officers of the planning department support it, as do, I would think, after having a planning application along these lines, do members of the planning committee, and I would urge that this council gives its full weight and full support to send in a letter as prescribed in the motion, Chairman.
I need someone to move the motion and then second it.
Can I propose we move it, Chairman?
Move it.
Yeah.
Would you like to second
I'm happy to second it, Chairman.
Do you wish to speak?
I will not say much because I think that most of the bones of what the motion is about is actually in the text of the motion. I would like to say, though, that while Councillor Frenchman and I drafted this, we're very grateful for all the help we got from officers. It wasn't just help in checking what we had drafted, but a lot of suggestions about how to actually improve the wording.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak? Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. As portfolio holder for strategic planning for the district, this is a matter that I very much sympathise with. I'm very supportive of this motion. This is probably the only thing this council can do at this level and at this stage, which is to write to the Secretary of State, and we will do that. But I should like to report that I have myself attempted to raise it with other ministers in the Department of Communities and Local Government in my interaction with them regarding planning and development of the district, and I shall continue to do so. It's clear that there is a nonsense in the General Permitted Development Order 2015 as amended, which the drafters didn't foresee, and which the landowners, who are struggling farmers, have been quick to exploit, but it must be put right.
Thank you. Well, we've had a proposal and a seconder. All in favour? Agreed. The next motion under Council Procedure Rule 12, notice of which has been given under Council Procedure Rule 12 by Councillors Chris Miller and Colin Poole. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll read out the motion very quickly. It's a short one. The Council fully welcomes the proposed arrival of the outstanding Ofsted-rated Swan School into Daventry Town, as we continue to play our part in supporting all education partners to improve the overall offer to students. It is vital that all students have a local choice of educational opportunities in order to achieve individually positive working lives as the district continues to attract more and more brain job opportunities. This chairman has certainly been breaking on for many, many years, going back to 2003, when in the growth agenda we recognised that the education on offer in Daventry was just not good enough, Chairman, even though we're not the local education authority. And so we have done our best over many years behind the scenes to help raise that offer, both at schools and colleges. And I have to say, Chairman, that I'm absolutely delighted. The problem that we had was the UTC building, which we're really grateful to get into Daventry, one of 13 nationally, and this is for kids between the age of 14 and 19. And that particular building, a £10.6 million facility, was an excellent facility, Chairman. But unfortunately, UTCs nationally had an issue that kids who went to them came in at year 10, and most kids obviously go into a senior school at year 7. So when kids are established in a school for 7, 8 years, 7, 8 and 9, often they will not want to move unless there's a very good reason to move. And what the UTC in Daventry, as other UTCs have found, is that obviously a lot of children didn't want to come here initially, but the ones who did come here did very well. For their ability, they did very, very well. And I know that it's a very high quality, the feedback we got from the students there was very, very positive. So we were more than disappointed when we realised that the government might be looking to close this facility. And the one thing we didn't want to do was for that building to remain empty. And it was very important to use for educational purposes. So we looked around at the time, was before the UTC was closed, just to try and see if we could line up a good school into Daventry. And we had a good school, because one of our biggest problems here, of course, Chairman, as you'll be aware and others will be aware, is the drift of students in this area going to Warwickshire. Because Warwickshire have the grammar school system, And we were, we really feel that, in Daventry district, children living here should be educated here. And therefore the offer should be that we give a good offer to all students, and therefore they can choose then, hopefully, to come stay in this district, this town, rather than go to the borders to Warwickshire, either in Rugby itself or in Southend. So what we did was, we had a school lined up, and then for selection reasons we decided that wasn't going to be possible. And then we had Spon School, and Spon School are an outstanding school for many, many years, and very highly regarded. And they were very keen to come into the UTC building. So in a sense, that seemed to make sense. The problem was, of course, Spon wanted a full school from year 7 to year 13, and clearly the UTC building would not be big enough to accommodate their plans. So then we're now finding the site for Spon in Daventry, so Spon can build their school in the next 2 years. They have funding to build this school, by the way. There's funding available for Spon to build their new school in Daventry, and therefore that school will be built on a site still to be confirmed, even though we have 3 sites potentially in mind. The school will take about a year to build once that site's confirmed. But the building, they have to build it in a 2-year period to make sure they secure that funding. So really the point here is that the UTC building, the existing UTC building, will be used by the Parker Academy, and that's good as well, because obviously that means the Parker Academy can expand their operations to the UTC site. And therefore the purpose of this motion really is to say we welcome an excellent education facility coming to Daventry to complement not only the 2 senior schools, but to complement Northampton College, which is doing extremely well at the moment, to complement Norton College, which has a site at Northampton College, and also the Hill School, again an excellent example of that type of school, to make sure we give people in Daventry and district a real choice for their students and children to go to. So that's the purpose of this motion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second the motion. I reserve the right to come back after a debate, if any, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. I was aware of this Spon School coming to Daventry Town, but that's only because of one of the groups that I sit on. I haven't actually been made publicly aware that this was coming to town. Now, not long ago, there was, before the college was built in Daventry, there was an existing secondary school. So in this town, we used to have 3 secondary schools, which was the Grange Comprehensive, of which it was the best one in the town. That got closed, and the college moved in to that school. There were many debates over that, of people saying, that we would need a 3rd school in time. I was told by officers of this council that would not be true. We could run on the 2 senior schools, and that school got demolished, and the new college has been built, and half that site has now been filled with houses. I haven't officially been told either by this council that Parker React have been awarded the UTC building. Now that will provide an extra 600 spaces to the school, and obviously the schools now are working very closely together. Their grades are improving. They've got good management leadership there, and amongst the 2 schools there are probably, I don't know, in the region of 1,000 now empty spaces with the 600 spaces in the UTC. Councillor Miller did just say that he would have liked to see Spon School move into the UTC, but it wouldn't have been possible if it was from year 7. Therefore, I assume if it was a bigger school, you would have allowed them to move in from year 7, or would have liked that if the capacity was there. So therefore, I'm assuming that you'll be happy for that building to go from year 7, right the way across the board. Now it's been awarded to React, because I think it would be really good. But I'm really concerned how this is already going to affect the pupils in this town. Because what happens, obviously, is that there's a pupil premium for everybody that attends the school. Figures are low within the school, which is having a huge impact on the budget. If the school is filled to capacity, obviously there is a lot more budget for teacher training and everything else. So then that would also improve the education within this town.
you put another school in this town, what is going to happen to that existing school? Because if people then move out, and yes, there is choice, but what is going to happen to the children already going there? So I've got huge concerns. I really don't understand. I've always been led to believe, whenever there's a planning application, that the NCC look at figures and decide how big a school is. Like recently, we've reduced the figures on the Monksmoor Primary School because the projection isn't there. So I went on to the NCC website and had a read of their report, and what it says is both Malton and Guilsborough have low or no surplus capacity, so they're going to look at increasing Malton School by 150 secondary places. An expansion at Guilsborough School is also a possibility. And then it goes on to say, although public projection forecasts indicate pupil numbers are expected to rise in the Daventry area, there is sufficient capacity available to accommodate this rise. Therefore, NCC has no further plans to add any secondary school places in the Daventry area. In the longer term, post-2021, a new secondary school may be required to serve the pupils from the Churchill development in Daventry Town. So therefore, I do not agree with your motion. I do not welcome a new school when our facilities are improving. I was a school governor for 20 years and I saw the difference in education on the leadership. We had a good head, education was good. The heads went, we had poor leadership, then the education and grades went down. Good head, they rose back up. I believe now that across those schools in Daventry, we've got good, strong leadership, and and I'm watching carefully and seeing those grades increase.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. A couple of things I've made a quick note of. UTC. Don't think we didn't try to open it up to Year 7, Year 10. It has a covenant on it, which is Year 14 to Year 19. With regard to the a new school or spawn school, having spoken to many employers locally, they welcome the arrival, particularly because of the quality of their school throughout. We talk about, or Councillor Randall spoke about the two secondary schools in Daventry, the school closing. Yes, I was one of those that was shouting at the back, you can't close the school. However, we have two EAC schools in Daventry. It wasn't the district council that gave EAC a monopoly in this town, it was somebody else. Each school has a capacity of 1,200. They are roughly 500 each below capacity. So there are places in those schools for another 1,000 people, students. I can understand the county council saying we don't need a school, but the fact of the matter is our children for the last 20 years have been denied decent education in Daventry. Yes, I agree with Councillor Randall that the recent Ofsted reports will be or have been favourable. However, many students are attending schools out of town. Their siblings have the right to attend those schools as a matter of course, or would be given preference to attend those schools. Currently my grandson is costing £800 a year. Next year it'll be £1,600 to go out of Daventry across the border. Spawn School within the town will certainly assist our residents going forward for a school of excellent quality. I think that's all. The footprint, Councillor Randall spoke about the new college, and now we have houses on that site, mainly because the footprint has been reduced considerably, but it is now or regarded as a college of absolute excellence, particularly in the digital field. Councillors, I commend this motion to you. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor Osborne and then Councillor Ritchie. And I propose we move on.
Thank you, Chairman. Similar part of what I wanted to say has been said by Councillor Paul, but I must say that over the years, certainly the schools in Daventry haven't had the best reputation. There were times when they had outstanding reputations, but they haven't recently. The idea now in this country is for people to send their children to what school they want. They choose their school, like they choose their supermarket, like they choose anywhere where they want to go. If they feel a school is good and is going to give their children good education, they choose it. Therefore, should a school come to Daventry that has a high reputation, and yes, I accept that Parker has gone up in estimation recently. I used to go to Parker when it had a different name, when it was brand new, many years ago, as you can probably see. But I think Spon School coming to Daventry will make the other schools rise. If they don't rise, they will fall. We want better education in Daventry, and it can only be achieved by competition and people wanting to send their people to Daventry. Recently, there was a scare at Guilsborough that it wasn't big enough to take all the children from Lombutby, and they were going to have to come to Daventry. There was uproar in Lombutby. They didn't want to come to Daventry. Why? Because of the educational standards at the time. That was the reason. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. It doesn't seem very long ago since we were welcoming the UTC. It was an important prestige project for Daventry. We thought it was great. It had spaces for what, 600 pupils, and I don't think it ever got much past about filling a quarter of them. It was an absolutely dismal experience for Daventry. The school closed, and that was that. But I remember that when the proposal was being considered, there was a paper that we had access to, produced, I assume, by the Department of Education, which was an impact assessment. And I see that from the first paragraph, it suggests that the legislation requires the Secretary of State to make an impact assessment when a new school is being planned, that is, planning the impact on other schools in the area. Quite ironic that the impact assessment for the UTC, the only school that it appeared to be putting at high risk was the Parker Academy, rather than seeing that it's the Parker Academy has survived, but not the UTC. I assume that there must be a similar impact assessment for a school from Spon coming to Daventry. I would like to ask if the officers or anybody has actually seen a copy, and would it not make more sense, rather than welcoming Spon coming to Daventry, that we wait and actually see what the impact assessment is? There is no point in welcoming a school that is going to have a detrimental effect on the schools that we already have here. I'm all for increasing the choice that we give to our students, but we can give choice within schools rather than choice between the sites and the buildings that they must go to. I think, too, Chair, we have the experience of the UTC. If we are going to take the interests of our young people seriously, we do not want to result in people's education being disrupted by a school going to the wall while they are still going through it. If that is the case, I think that we need to see that report before we can be talking about welcoming another school into Daventry. I think it would be irresponsible for us not to do that. Can I add just another secondary point that worries me a little? Look, we've heard that in Daventry we have got loads and loads of extra school places. Yet around the country there are other areas where they are crying out for school places. Is there not something that's just slightly immoral about us saying, you know, isn't it wonderful, let's have an extra school, where those resources can be going somewhere where they are actually needed? I just feel that we now have the government's effective market in education, in which academies can go where they want, rather than being sent where they are needed. And I would have thought that if we were going to behave responsibly, we would be taking this up with the Department of Education and saying, look, can we not sort of think this through? Is this the right direction for us to be going in?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, very interesting, Chairman, isn't it? Labour, the party who want to give choice to the students, are for some reason concerned about an outstanding school coming into Daventry. And I think Councillor Randall said it. I know Councillor Randall, I think, has lived in Daventry all her life. You haven't done, okay, sorry. I wasn't sure you went to school here, but that's the point I made. Okay. The point you made, though, Councillor Randall, was a good one, because actually what you said was the two senior schools were going up and down in terms of performance. I spoke to someone recently who's been involved in education in Daventry for 20 years, who, in their opinion, there's only been two good heads. You're quite right about leadership in schools. There's only been two good heads, in those two schools collectively over those 20 years, where performance did rise at the time, and then what happened afterwards, the performance fell again. And all I'm trying to say to you is, that's not good enough. And I fought hard for people in Daventry to say the education offering in Daventry has not been good enough, and with a larger population coming into the town, Chairman, what we don't want to see is thousands of people moving into the town, and they're taking their education elsewhere outside this area. So I think it's very, very important we give people an outstanding school choice. I think it's been said already that outstanding school may set the bar higher for the existing schools, and I have to say there has been good improvement recently on the existing schools, but it has been seen before where it has improved, but it's never actually consolidated over a period of time, mainly depending upon the leadership of those schools at the time. If the leadership went, then it may have dropped again, and I think Councillor Randall's right about that. I think the important thing here is, Chairman, we're talking about a larger population coming in over the years ahead. It's about thinking ahead again, it's not about what's here now, and I think it'd be very irresponsible, and I think a lot of the public will not forgive those who actually try to stop an outstanding school coming into Daventry and try and set the bar higher for everybody. And I think over time, if the school isn't good enough, it won't survive. But hopefully what will happen, Chairman, the bigger population in the longer run, you may have 2 or 3 schools who will be excellent, who will actually provide a wonderful education choice, along with our colleges and the University of Northampton, to actually give pupils in this area a very good choice for their future education and the jobs they fill. And one thing about the UTC, people might mock about the UTC fairly, Chairman. The fact is we are very disappointed, because the UTC was excellent for those pupils who wanted a vocational education. And I think it's a real shame when people want to make political capital out of no fault of this council, we're not the education authority, out of the failure of the UTC, because we were very disappointed. And my main aim was to make sure when the UTC was going to close, that we had a good replacement to give people that choice. And Northampton College, I have to say, Northampton College is becoming more and more impressive, and I think well done to them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Can I just come back with one sentence there? Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if you've seen the Ofsted report for the Northamptonshire College. It was Ofsted report in May, requires improvement across nearly every subject. So, which is what I said all the way along, you can build a new college like we did, but when you've got the same pupils and you've got the same staff, that all they've done was moved across, it just proves through that Ofsted report that having a new building does not raise standards, does it? So, you know, you're all saying that yes, it is such wonderful. It's no different than it was when it was in the old buildings.
I have to come back, Chairman. Councillor Randall misses the point, actually. I have to say, I think it's very sad you're talking down the college.
You're talking down the schools.
Hold on a second. I'm not talking down the schools.
Yes,
No,
you
no,
will.
I'm not talking down the schools. Sorry, Councillor Randall. The point about the colleges, Councillor Randall, I don't know how much you know about it. I've just been involved in that Ofsted. The point is, I think that Ofsted rating, in my view, wasn't right. I think a lot of good stuff's going on at the college. So I think for you to try and damn it. Hold on a second. The point about the new school coming in, it's not a new building. It's an existing school which is going to have an arm in Daventry, which has proven track record of outstanding, not good, outstanding, and that school will bring those same high standards to Daventry, and for you to try and say that's not good enough is unbelievable. And I think the point about this, Councillor Randall, is you know for yourself, you said it yourself, the performance of the existing schools has been up and down over the years. I think the people of Daventry deserve far better than that. They deserve a school that can set a higher standard, and then the other schools will have to compete or they won't succeed. And that way you're going to get high standards overall. It's not about building, it's about ethos and the ability of the new school coming in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think we ought to have some sort of decision on this and bring the discussion to an end. Do you wish to have a vote on it? Right. All those in favour of this motion? All those against? Carried. Item 7.3, motion under Council Procedure Rule 12, to consider the following motion, notice of which has been given under Council Procedure Rule 12 by Councillors Ken Ritchie and Wendy Brandon.
Thank you, Chair. I trust you will accept that I don't read the entire motion out as it is in front of us.
Well, it won't take long to read.
The motion is this. Noting that work on preparing the vision for Daventry began 15 years ago and the report was produced in 2004, that there has been a substantial increase in Daventry's population since the adoption of the vision, that while some progress had been made on the recommendations contained in the vision, it has not yet been possible to implement many of them, and that in particular, no external funds have been found for the construction of a canal arm, the costs of which are now estimated to be 24 million, and it now appears that finding external funding for these costs will be at the best challenging. The Council now believes that the time has come to review and if necessary revise the vision, and that a review and revision of the vision should involve intensive discussions with local residents and residents in other parts of the district who may be affected financially or otherwise by recommendations. Noting the very low number of responses to the consultation on the vision in 2004, the Council believes that the consultations which must be part of a review of the vision should be led by independent facilitators with expertise in engaging with local communities. The Council instructs its officers to consult with councillors of all parties and with the Town Council in preparing a scoping paper for the review for the Council's consideration. This motion is not suggesting that we should start immediately in producing a new vision. But our argument is that we have been going on now for 13 years. Some things have been achieved. We have got the retail park on sites, is it site 4? The retail park, I keep on getting my numbers mixed up with the one at the bottom of Ashby Road, well in its way to development, 5. And we have the educational facilities at the bottom of Ashby Road, in the UTC and the new college that is being built there. Some things have happened, other things have not, and the canal is not the only one of them. But where things have not, where we haven't been able to make progress on issues, on recommendations, over 13 years, surely it's time to go back and actually look at these recommendations and question, were these the appropriate things to be trying to do? No successful or sensible company will go on for 13 years without reviewing its strategy. Well, neither should we. We need a review. Now, the sort of vision that I believe that we need for Daventry is one that is not simply the Council's vision, but one that is a shared vision for the people of Daventry. And as a consequence, the people of Daventry need to be involved in it. I appreciate that the vision that we have, yes, there was consultation back in 2003 and 2004. The report on the vision tells us that there were 98 responses, public responses, to the questionnaire, and about something, I can't remember the figures, like 15 or 16 letters that were submitted. Now, put that together And that must have been about 0.5% of Daventry's population at the time. And there isn't even any evidence to suggest that the group who actually did filling questionnaires were in any sense representative. Admittedly, those who did respond were broadly, but not overwhelmingly, in favour of all of the recommendations. It was something like 60-40 in the case of the canal arm, but in such a small number, it was dangerous to proceed on that basis, given that, 7 years later, we had the local referendum. Councillor Poole will tell me that it was a parish poll, which is akin to saying that, dairy milk is not chocolate. But, we need to find a much better way of engaging with people. And what I would like to see is an approach to a vision that is based on conversations, not the sort of consultation where we put a series of statements to people and ask them to respond. That perhaps comes at a later stage. But where we start by talking with people and talking with communities about what it is that they think Daventry is about, what it is that is important to them, and building up the vision from the bottom. Of course, the council has got to be involved at some stage because the council has got to deal with the practicalities of implementation. But the council is there to represent, to support the process, but not to lead it. The sort of exercise that I have in mind is not revolutionary. There are many other places where it has been done in Britain. There are wonderful examples internationally about ways in which local authorities have involved their residents in formulating plans, in bringing people together in that way. Why can't we try to be in the lead in doing that, here in Daventry? There is a lot of expertise. There are many consultants and consultancies that have developed the methodology, that have the approaches that can be used, the things that work and the things that don't. And I feel that the time has come, not for us to consult by asking people, but to bring in these people, to act as the facilitators, to start that conversation. Because although a vision for Daventry will be essentially a vision that is about planning, to me the vision of Daventry has got to be the vision of a town, or indeed of a district, that has a council that actually listens to its people and tries to respond to them. We've got to give our residents the opportunity to come up with their ideas. It's quite possible that a new vision might include a canal arm and development in a certain way, but we can't assume it. We have got to give people the opportunity to work through what they think would work best for Daventry. What we are suggesting here, I say, is not that we go out and we start the process, but let's ask our officers to consult with councillors and councillors of all parties, talk to the town council because it is clearly important too, and put together perhaps an options paper for us to consider at a future meeting about how we would take such a process forwards and how we would do it. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. Councillor Morgan.
Chair, I think it needs seconding first before we speak.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll second it and I'll reserve the right to speak.
Just advise for some clarity. Just for some clarity, when we have a motion that's already on the agenda, it's already been duly submitted and proposed and seconded, it merely needs to be moved. The chairman of the first motion was buying belt and braces and did get a second, and several times since other people have decided to second, which is absolutely fine. But strictly speaking, it only needs to be moved by one of the persons who actually proposed or seconded, or someone on their behalf, and that's due to them.
Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Chairman. I listened with interest to Councillor Ritchie's exposition of his motion, and I welcome the motion that gives us the opportunity to put right a few misconceptions and to make sure that people understand what is actually going on. The vision, town centre vision, a copy of which I have here, if anybody needs to see it, was indeed produced a while ago. It is not a plan, it's a long-term view of the future of Daventry. It was prepared by independent consultants over a period of 2 years, and that preparation involved an awful lot of attempts to engage with the local population. Local population, as often is the case, voted with its feet by not taking much interest. There were a number of opportunities of events organised and interactions, exhibitions. The figures that I have show that during those public engagement exercises, consultants only recorded about 1,000 responses, and of those, the figures I have say that only 94 responses to the questionnaire were received. Councillor Richard said 98, I expect he's right, but it depends where he got his figure from. I got it from the Town Centre Vision document itself. Now, a lot goes on from between the production of a vision statement and actual holes in the ground and planning and construction. The vision, of course, as I said, was not a plan. It was necessary for the district council to draw up a plan under the extant planning legislation. Unfortunately, of course, during the ensuing period, a number of events happened which frustrated much of this work. And in 2004 or thereabouts, the district council was required to produce a local plan. Vision statement was helpful feeding into that. Round about 2007, its existing local plan, 1997 plan, effectively came to the end of its useful life, but some of the policies in it were reserved for future use during the preparation of the local plan, as I mentioned earlier. In 2008, the government at the time produced a statutory instrument which created something called the West Northamptonshire Joint Strategic Planning Committee, which was required to produce the local plan for Daventry District, South Northants District and Northampton Borough. You can see what I'm saying here is that the planning process becomes complicated. There was much consultation during the production of the Joint Core Strategy, which is the Part 1 local plan, and that Part 1 plan was adopted in 2014 after examination in public and quite rigorous and vigorous consultation. The Joint Core Strategy contains reference to the town centre vision, and there are 5 particular policies in it, policies D1 to D5, which are based on the Town Centre Vision 2021 document, which was the outcome of the previous vision consultation. In the meantime, Daventry had produced, the District Council had produced the Daventry Master Plan 2040, which was based again on the Town Centre Vision 2021 document, but involved an awful lot of public engagement. I myself took part in that before I was an elected member of the council, because that was the kind of consultation that was carried on. We have to remind ourselves during this that we are the district council, not the town council, and we are responsible for the development of the entire district, and that the decision has been made that that development will be based on the development of Daventry town as the sub-regional centre, as it's now called. I was interested to hear on the Radio Northampton today a number of broadcasts of interviews with people carried out recently about the canal arm. And the objections were based on two main statements. People said there's been no progress on the town centre vision projects, and what they ought to do is bring more shops in. Now, what I don't understand is how people can say that unless it's because they have no idea of what's contained in the town centre vision and the local plan. Maybe they've been fed partial information, I don't know. Bringing more shops in started in 2004-ish, and we've had a lot of good support from, in particular, the Henry Boot organisation in fulfilling the visions of these sites.
Excuse me, Councillor Chandler, could I ask you to sum up?
Very well, I will. I note that other people seem to go on and on and on, but I'm not allowed to. Fine, not a problem.
I have to wash.
Good for you. Okay, then let me quickly just say this.
Thank you.
In order to increase the attractiveness of the shops in the town, you need people to be here to shop, not just the town centre population, because the shop developers can't rely on them. There's not a large enough footfall. Daventry needs something spectacular, was a statement that was repeated today on the radio, to increase that footfall. During the ensuing period, development has been held up by the Labour-led recession that we had, which took some time to recover from. Developers need certainty and commitment. They wish to avoid a sheer chasm of uncertainty. If you keep changing the vision, they will not get that certainty. Chairman, I think you asked people not to utter. Yes, I'm trying to sum up.
Summing up, can we have quiet and allow to do so in peace?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. So, given that we have persisted in trying to produce the development of the town centre vision against all odds, I think there's a lot to be said for it. The parish poll was a very low turnout. The referendum suggestion wouldn't work, and I was pleased to see that in his exposition, Councillor Ritchie reduced the part of the motion as printed which says the council instructs the officers. He suggested that we ask the officers. We don't instruct the officers, and certainly the Labour group don't instruct the officers. I can't support the motion, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Morgan, did you indicate?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make it quite quick, actually, because Councillor Chandler gave very detailed. I welcome these motions. Actually, I think it's really good to have this discussion. I personally can't support it, actually. However, one thing I would ask Councillor Ritchie to do is he did speak about this notion of independent facilitators and with expertise in engaging local communities. Interesting enough, I work for a company actually, we charge sort of £5,000 to £10,000 for this kind of service a day, so we can soon see this starting to rack up this kind of cost. But actually what I would say, what we do need is we need to have a firm vision of the future and then keep on that track. But what I would say, one final call to action really, is when we do have these, I actually welcome the intellectual discussion we're having. But what I would say is, can we please have a couple of case studies? As Councillor Ritchie said, there are some examples. I genuinely would like to see a couple of those examples in the paper. So that's a support and constructive comment, and thank you very much for the challenge. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Paul.
Yes, afterwards,
Councillor Pritchard, Councillor Paul, Councillor Randall, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. The thing about a vision, it should be inclusive. It should share the electorate's voice, what they want. This is now historical. You talked about a Labour government overseeing what was actually a global recession, global downturn, which I've acknowledged in terms of some of the difficulties that the Conservative administrations had, which I didn't have to. So I correct you there, Chancellor. when we come to looking at austerity, where it hit this region, hit the world in 2008 onwards, I think we should have been more reactive instead of sticking to a vision which can't be completed, which can't be delivered. And that's what people are talking about. They're not disagreeing that there should be development. But however, this hasn't happened within this district. And people instead have come out today and are visibly demonstrative in terms of their lack of support and actually vehement opposition to some of these less than structured developments that are being funded, as we ask for another £300,000 later on. I'll leave the discussion there because I'm sure it will come up later again.
Councillor Paul. Thank you, Chairman. A vision is a vision. Councillor Sharpner very correctly said it went from 2004, 2021. The master plan goes from 21 up to 2040. The Civic Trust, there is actually a member of the public in this chamber who was engaged with the Civic Trust, who went round, and you know, how many times can you say? But a vision is something that doesn't take a straight line in every sense of the word. A vision is where we want to go. Extenuating circumstances change the actions and they change the timing of such actions. We have produced the vision, we have accommodated the majority of matters within that 2021 vision. However, the constraints, I would have expected, you know, the quality of our Labour members to understand the constraints. I mean, there was a very nice report delivered to S&I by Councillor Pritchard, who highlighted some of the constraints. A vision is a vision. It is a way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Most of us weren't elected when this vision was first produced, and you know, you will all know, as I often say, that I'm always out and about talking to people. We've got our vision and our values up there. You know, place the customer at the heart of everything we do. And yet we always seem to be telling the customer what we're going to do rather than actually asking the customer what we would like to do for them. So to me, you know, the way of the vision, you go out with a blank canvas, you go out to the public and you say, what would you like? Gather their ideas, because I can tell you, their ideas are far better than what we hear in this chamber. Nearly every day they can come out with amazing, fantastic ideas. You never give them the opportunity. I've done an S&I report on communication. I spoke to different councils around the country. How did they communicate? And do you know what they said? They start with a blank canvas. They go out to the public. They actually gather their ideas. Then they put them together. Then we work through some sort of vision. We don't do that. When do we ever go out with a blank canvas and say, right, what would you like? What would you like? When do we go? You go and talk to those businesses in the town. You ask them what they would like for this town. What would keep a business in this town? We just seem to just go along, tell everybody what we want to do. As for people responding, look how many responses we got to the black bin. Look how many responses we got to picking up dog poo and carrying a bag. And when we done that, it's because we went out to the public. We had different stands out and about. And when we're talking at something like a vision that affects everybody in the district, where we're spending the most of our money, that's what we should be doing. We should be going out, we should be talking to the public. Same, you know, with the canal. Ask them, do you want this? Do you don't want this? If you don't want this, what can you have? What do you think will bring people into the town? What will keep you here? There's so many people in this town that have never ever come to a shop in this town. They go out. Why do they go out? Because we haven't got the shops. Only this week, what we had, store 21 closed. Today I've been told that one of the nightclubs is closing. All around the town, things are closing. People are coming to me, what's going to be in its place? I don't know, I haven't got a clue. I don't know what's coming. You know, it's just sad. And there's a lot of little businesses that are struggling. They've got some beautiful little shops that do bring people into the town, but they're telling me they're not going to be here in 12 months' time because they can't survive. So go out to the public, ask them what will keep us in this town. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ritchie.
Chair, I understand Councillor Miller wants to speak. My shot is in responding to the debate. If I speak, does that deny you an opportunity to...
That's a fair point, Councillor Pritchard. I just want to say a few words on what Councillor Pritchard said, Chairman. I'm very surprised that Councillor Pritchard doesn't realise we have fantastic levels of employment in this area. We're attracting lots of inward investment. A lot of places don't do that. I go around the country to see councils where actually they suffer very badly. They don't have plans. We have steady plans, and people understand. Councillor Randall seems to think you go around 70,000 people, get 70,000 ideas, and what happens then? You have to start somewhere where you implement things, and that builds in, that inward plan will drive more investment, because people actually believe things will happen. And I think one of the fallacies of the opposition is, Councillor Randall speaks to everyone. I can't compete with that, because obviously she speaks to everyone in the whole district. But the reality is, Councillor Randall, that if you want anything done, if you want anything not to happen, do what you're doing. Because that's how it works, Chairman. You speak to lots of people who all come up with different ideas. It's the easiest thing in the world to make sure nothing happens. If that's your objective, Councillor Randall, you're doing a good job. What we're doing, if you're in opposition, if you're in actual power, nothing would happen. What we're about is hope, long-term hope for our communities, and what Labour offer locally is nothing. And with nothing, you get nothing, and even worse than nothing, that go backward. So you need plans, we need to build the plans over time, and the worst thing you can do, Councillor Rich, is to start again, and go back over the old, go through the whole process again, and all you do is delay by 10 years, and by that time, Daventry goes downhill. The reality is, Daventry's on the up, despite what Councillor Randall says. Daventry is on the up, and we do far better than most towns in this country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I sometimes get the impression that Councillor Miller thinks that we think that Daventry Council is totally useless. It's not the case. It might be useless, but not totally useless. I just wanted to respond on one issue that was raised by Councillor Chandler. And that was the difficulty that there was back in 2003-2004 in the consultation on the vision. And that difficulty has been there in every consultation that we've had since. It's a difficulty that is there each time that we have local elections here. And I mean, we're not unusual. We're just the same as most other local authorities, most other areas. We are not connected with the people that we are here to represent. And I'm not suggesting that there is any easy way in which we do that. We're kidding ourselves if we turn around and say, well, it's actually the fault of our residents because they don't get involved. You only need to sit in the corner of any pub or go around and listen to the conversations taking place in the market and the streets and everywhere else. And of course, are people concerned. But what we have failed to do is find a way of bringing these conversations into our politics. I use politics with a small p there. It's not easy. And that's why I'm suggesting that we need to bring people who have, who have looked at these issues. Nobody has got a complete answer, but there are people who have developed ideas. It's been suggested that yes, consultants cost a huge amount of money. There are different sorts of consultants. There are the people that developed out of the Town and Country Planning Association involved. There's the Democratic Society that was set up as a group. There are others that have done a huge amount of work with local authorities, such as this, on these sorts of problems. And I just think that, that is not something that we can overlook. My concern is not whether we have got the right policies, whether we have got the right vision in terms of plans, but whether we have got a vision that we actually share with people, that is actually built in what people in Daventry want and think, and whether we can actually connect again and move forwards in that way.
I think we've given this a motion enough of an airing, so I'll bring it to a close. Do you wish to have a vote on this motion? Yep. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Motion.
Shame on you.
Sorry?
Could I abstain on that because I was out of the room?
Yeah. Right, moving on then to reports of committees. To receive, for information purposes only, the minutes of the undermentioned committees. The list has been circulated. Shall I take it that you can receive those minutes? We'll now move on to the recommendations of the several committees, so 27th of July 17 on page 79 to 84. The first recommendation is SG 351701, Community and Voluntary Sector Commissioning. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. This is all about community and voluntary commissioning. The strategy, I stressed it is an important item, and I want to put far more meat on the bone than I would stress. Firstly, I just want to reiterate the recommendations. That the annual budget is increased for the next cycle of commissioning in April 2018 from 80,000 to 150,000 for 3 years. The established process for commissioning services is followed as per previous years. The system that works. Now, I listened very carefully at strategy to some of the comments. I think we all agree that the voluntary and community sector play a very important part within our community. And that whichever political party is in government, they could not do the work that the sector engages in. They couldn't come. However, it would be totally wrong if we took this report in isolation without taking into account the bigger picture, looking at capital and revenue and other funding available. Yes, I agree, looking back, years ago the district council grant was £156,000. Then the county council came on board and we eventually reduced our funding to £80,000. This was when recession was an all-time high and the country and authorities had to cut their cloth. As time moved on, this affected the county council and the funding was either cut or withdrawn. What we are proposing is an additional £70,000, making a total of £150,000. Yep, that's still £6,000 less than the original figure. But we have to take this in context with all the other things that we do to support the voluntary and community sector and what else we are doing and what else we have done. And I'll put some meat on the bone from that aspect. Firstly, in the year 2016-17, within our main grant funding, we provided £160,000 to the voluntary and community sector, of which there are many voluntary groups and charitable trusts and many, many volunteers involved. So far this year, we have allocated over £61,000 to various events and things. Example, Long Buckley Children's Recreation Ground, £11,500. DACT, our community transport, £10,000. And Daventry Contact, £14,500 amongst many others. I could go on. You also have to look at the small grants. The council offers £1,000 to allow groups to purchase equipment and to cover expenses for training purposes. Also, a grant of £500 help communities put on events. The small grants panel awarded Home Start Children's Centre £750, Daventry Ladies Hockey Club £750, and again many, many others. This administration voiced concerns about the funding, and the Chief Executive allocated an extra £30,000 of additional funding for the voluntary sector, and this has been applied for and allocated. In about 6 months, we will see the start of our community lottery, which received unanimous support from the voluntary sector and at the recent funding fair. This itself will add another £20,000 to £40,000 to our grant funding pot. And I'd like to stress, this is additional funding, not instead of current funding. And although this is not district council money, the county council's empowering councillor scheme is still running. And I go back, when up to last May, I was actually a county councillor. I was able to support the volunteer centre, Time to Talk, DACT and Daventry Contact. And I feel sure that our county councillors, who are also members of the council, will be engaging with some of these organisations. Finally, we as a council have to operate a fair system. And I want to mention benchmarking, which quite frankly, when you look at similar districts, provides good justification for the proposed figure. Give you some examples. East Northants, population 90,000, funding 95,000, capita per head £1.06. South Northants, population approximately 85,000, funding 135,000, per head £1.59. Daventry District Council, approximate population 80,000, proposed funding 150,000, per head £1.88. I'm aware that many organisations have already made efficiencies or also have done or are about to do so. I badly want our voluntary and community sector to remain independent. I don't want them to be reliable on one source of funding. It would not be to their advantage. In fact, it would be counterproductive if they got to that stage. So, as I said, let's take into account the bigger picture. Approve these recommendations. They're fair, they're worthwhile, and they will help to benefit our communities. Council, I ask your support to move this forward. Thank you.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Hill's made a very good case there for this one, and simply echo those key points around being fair, actually benefiting the community and the fabric of the community, and I fully support this.
Second. Well, we've got a proposal and a seconder. Yes, very briefly.
Thank you, Chair. This is, I know many of us here do volunteer time. I'm a foster carer and volunteer looking after 2 young autistic men and get great joy out of that. And there seems to be a paradox between money required for voluntary work, because by its very nature it's given of our own time. But small amounts of money and paying of allowance and mileage allows people to volunteer their time, allows people to give back to the community. And especially small amounts of cash to build communities. Sometimes they're only small amounts of cash, but they make a massive difference to the fabric of our communities. So I commend this rise. I wish that we could give more, but I think this rise should be applauded and it should be voted in a positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olga. Councillor Bramble, and then Councillor Charter, and then we'll put it to the meeting again.
Thank Thank you, Chairman. At strategy, I put forward a proposal that this actually be increased to 300,000, but obviously then I was asked where the money would come from, and I said actually, no, I didn't know. But I'm what we do, and I spoke about this at the previous council meeting, about bringing back reports when you sit on an outside body. Now, we've got the Daventry Volunteer Centre based here in Daventry that recruits volunteers for different organisations all across the district, which Councillor Alan Hills sits on. I was amazed to find out actually that they've all been made redundant. I had no idea. 2 years ago, they actually in their AGM said that they were running on their reserves and they would be closing if they didn't get sufficient funding. Funding is getting increasingly difficult because everybody else is going through tough times. They are still operating because they have been given some money. District Council have given them some money as the County Council, but that's only by the staff now. Working on reduced hours, and that is only till March. Then they will finish. They do all the nearly all the recruitment for these volunteers across the district. I ask them, what sort of projects do they do, and they do the Happy at Home, the Time Bank, Clean and Green, the Cafe project. They do amazing work there. If that goes, if they do not get the funding, they need 108,000 a year to run, £9,000 a month, some staffing cost of the building to recruit, pay back. Without them, so many of these organisations will just fold as well. And we're relying more and more on the voluntary sector. And Councillor Shepherd emailed me, and I appreciate that, and I did have a brief conversation, with Aldra to find out what way, that I go about increasing this budget. But I urge you all that come April, these voluntary organisations, we will give them some more funding. They're not going to be around. Imagine how everybody would suffer without the help of all the volunteers there are across the district. It is vital that we increase. I mean, we were on 156,000 in 2012. We're relying more and more and more on the voluntary sector now, and we're still only up to 150. So again, somehow, whether it's through, the portfolio holder, to take it away and come back, but I urge that come April, these organisations are going to need a lot more than what we're proposing this evening. So, I mean, I know that I can't propose an increase this evening because I know I'm going to get exactly the same answer as I get a strategy. So all I'm saying, is please, the portfolio holder, please will you look into it and try and increase this going forward from April. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I should probably declare an interest. Since Tuesday night, I am a trustee and director of Citizens Advice Daventry District, but in fulfilling the spirit of one of the things Councillor Randall just said, could report back to Council that at that meeting of trustees, I was told that the Citizens Advice Service in Daventry is running on reserves and may well disappear in the near future, and I have a great deal of sympathy with the suggestion that we might try and find more money to help support such people. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, we've had a proposal in a section.
Chairman, may I respond?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, as one of the useless councillors, I'd like to respond to Labour. As Councillor Miller said earlier on, when you're in opposition, you can propose all sorts of things and say all sorts of things are wrong and that's not right, etc. Then you suddenly find yourself in administration. It's a very different ballpark. I believe what I proposed is fair. Councillor Randall mentioned, yes, I sit on the board of the Volunteer Centre as the council's representative. I was made aware of some of the problems they were having, and Councillor Miller and I did have meetings with them. But we were asked not to publicise too much because they deal with a lot of elderly people, etc. at the centre, And they didn't want them to stop coming and create panic amongst them. Councillor Randall talks about reports. I've just issued a couple of reports recently, which you all remember. I do that regularly, but I held back on this one because I knew there was going to be a discussion here, and it should be a discussion, and I didn't want to create panic amongst the elderly residents and the people who use the centre, because that would have destroyed it and it would have got even farther. And the point is about this 150,000, they can start making applications later on in the year for this. They've got until March. If they make an application and it's approved, I don't see there'll be any problem. I'm not going to say they won't have to make efficiencies, because all the volunteer centre, etc., are having to do the same. And we as a council can't provide funding for the whole lot. So what I would say is this: I stick by what I proposed. What I would like to say to members, perhaps when the lottery gets running, some of you may wish to review it or scrutinise it. That is up to you members to take a look at it. But I believe what I proposed is fair, and I think if anybody says that I have not, in my capacity, in my portfolio, tried to help the voluntary sector here, go and talk to them. Say Alan Hills is useless, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. Just talk and see what reply you get. Because when you make statements that you can't substantiate, and that's the problem. When you accuse people, make sure you get your facts right. Because I certainly don't agree with that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've given this enough now. Anything further? First proposed and a seconder.
Agreed.
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 All agree?
And I'll vote against because I've got
Yes.
to. That's only because I'd like to see them, because I do not feel this. Not because I don't feel they should get the money, I feel they need to.
Right, the next recommendation is SG 361701, Local Code of Conduct for Employees. Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't at the strategy group meeting, so I'm very grateful to members for having a good look at this. It has been reviewed by the monitoring officer, and it's also been a subject of consultation with management colleagues and union representatives, which I think is very important. I did notice in the minutes of the strategy group that Councillor Alan Chandler noted that paragraph 14 of the code referred to the Patents Act 1977, but not to the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988. And I believe this has been looked at, and I assume there was no need for amendment, as I'm sure Attorney Gillett will be able to confirm. And I hope members accept this provision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor.
Seconded, Chairman. No comment.
All in favour?
Agreed. Agreed.
Right, we move on then to SG 371701, Food and Health and Safety Service Plans. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chair. Each year the Health and Improvement Team needs to produce a service plan to satisfy the requirements of the Food Standards Agency and the Health and Safety Executive Framework Agreements. The report needs to include the performance of the previous year, hence cannot be issued before the financial year's end. There are no major changes to last year's plan. However, Section 4.2 does introduce a number of changes to the interventions that will be carried out on local workplaces in the council, health and safety inspectors. The changes essentially relate to expanding workplace transport interventions to include welfare provisions for delivery drivers and safe loading and unloading, introducing interventions on unattended swimming pools and gymnasiums, the potential for Legionella, risks from sport leisure activities, radon and slips, trips and falls. The changes are a result of information received from the Health and Safety Executive on what they would like local authorities to focus on. Therefore, I ask that it be recommended that the Council approve the Food Service Plan, Health and Safety Service Plan for the year 1st of April 2017 to 31st of March 2018. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder for that, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. No further comments to add to Councillor Warren's very comprehensive explanation, and I'd like to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. All in agreement?
Agreed.
And then we move on. SG 371702, which is the review of housing allocation scheme. I'm deferring that item until agenda item 13 because there is an overlapping. Agenda item 13 concerns an update on housing allocation scheme. So we'll deal with it at that particular time. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Move on then to SG 391701, Treasury Management Annual Report 2016 to 17. Councillor Shepherd.
Chairman, thank you. The Strategy Group received a report to members enabling members to have oversight. It's an annual report on the Treasury Management of the Council. Members have oversight of the substantial cash held by the Council on behalf of itself and other researching authorities. It's very similar to the report I gave last July. The points I highlighted to the Strategy Group are minuted, which are principally slippage of the capital programme and continued very sound investment strategy. I commend the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Yes, I'm happy to second that. No further comments.
Thank you. All in agreement?
Agreed.
Moving on then to SG 391702, 2017 to 18 Capital Revenue Budget and Medium-Term Financial Plan.
Thank you, Chairman. The outturn, of course, we looked at the outturn for 16-17 at this meeting, and I think we spotted before an unusual combination of factors coming together to provide some 3.2 million going to reserves. Of that, however, 2 million is to go to earmarked reserves for reasons stated in the report. And so there's 2 million there, which is really committed anyway. The medium-term financial plan shows the current year as the last of the significant surpluses of 2 million or so. We do well to balance the budgets from next year onwards. And the final bullet point, as it were, is that revisions in the capital programme, largely due to slippage, bring the anticipated spend this year down 3.5 million to 21 million, which we anticipate will give us a capital reserve at the year end of nearly 12.8 million. I commend the report, Chairman.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder for that?
Happy to second that. No further comments, Chairman.
Thank you. All in favour?
Agreed.
Then we move on to SG 391703, Business Rates Local Discretionary Relief Scheme. Councillor Sheffield.
Yes, this is a sort of morsel handed down on high, Chairman. The headline the government would make a lot of is that it is making 300 million available for businesses most adversely affected by the 2017 evaluation. The qualifications are that businesses in question must have a rateable value of not more than £200,000, and they must suffer an increase by virtue of revaluation by more than 12.5%. Now, we're told that there are 106 such qualifying businesses in the district. The slightly disappointing figure is that of the 300 million that the government is making available, we are given £100,000. We propose to spend all of that £100,000, dividing it between the 106 businesses that qualify in the district, and the way to do that is to apply a 12% discount to those 106 businesses. So 106 businesses in the district will have a 12% discount to them this year, and it's government money that's being spent. Commend the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder for that?
Thank you, Chairman.
And then we move on to recommendation S. Oh yes, all in favour?
Agreed.
Then we move on to recommendation SG 391704, planning appeal costs. Councillor Shepperton.
Yes, a notorious site in Weedon, particularly to the local members. Permission was granted on appeal for 120 houses in 2015. That was resisted by the planning committee, which was granted on appeal. We then had the inspector's decision granting the permission set aside in the High Court, and that decision was repeated by the Court of Appeal. So the decision of the inspector remains set aside, and the appeal is going to be, the inspector, the local planning appeal is going to be rerun. It's going to be rerun at some considerable expense, hence the request for an additional £30,000 in the budget for that purpose. That's the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Delighted to second this motion. Did explain some length of strategy why this is so important to the residents of Weedon, and on a night where this council faces allegations of not listening to residents and not doing what residents need, I think this is a prime example of this council doing exactly that, and this recommendation should have the full support of council because this is such importance to Weedon, and actually when this came to the strategy, the news was widely welcomed throughout the village.
Thank you. All in agreement?
Agreed.
And then we come to SG 401701, DDC and Parish Town Council cooperation over major planning applications. Councillor Oswald.
Can you stay, Chairman, sitting down there? Thank you, Chairman. Yes, a report by Councillor Frenchman that went to the wonderful scrutiny committee, which recommended a lot more items than this to the committee to help parishes with planning applications. On 2 occasions, myself and Maria Taylor behind me went along to scrutiny committee, and a great debate on all the recommendations that Councillor Frenchman made happened, let's say. It was good debate by members. The recommendations that came out suited certainly the officer, certainly suited myself as planning chairman, and I think suited the members of scrutiny committee. I was very impressed with the way they worked, the input that they put into it, and I'm not going to read all the recommendations out. I'm just going to say there are 8 recommendations there that I propose that the council adopts. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Chairman, thank you. I'd like to second this recommendation. It's interesting actually because we did have quite a debate about it actually. Looking at it, you couldn't really actually ask yourself why we'd have such a debate about it. It was pretty straightforward. But I think the other stakeholder group is obviously the public and applicants, etc. as well, who again we're listening to, hence Councillor Brow's point earlier. And really I'd like to thank Councillor Frenchman for a great piece of work and a great piece of teamwork, and hopefully this gets accepted by everyone. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lomax.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make a small point about recommendation 6. And if there is sufficient demand, for planning training from parishes. I just wanted to make the point that it is important that we use the experience and the knowledge of our planning officers in this, but I would like to think, as an active Vice President of NCALC, that in fact any such training should actually be with cooperation and in conjunction with NCALC, which already provides such training for parish and town councils. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Proposal and a seconder. Proposal and a seconder.
Agreed.
We should be on a roll now. Moving on to SG 41 1701, Malton Village Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan and Conservation Area Designation. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. This is good news for the council. We've been wanting for a considerable period to give extra work to conservation areas, reappraisal of existing ones and possible consideration of proposals for new ones. This has now been possible because of the appointment of a short-term extra member of staff. This refers to the Malton Village Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan. It went out for consultation. A number of helpful responses were received, and the recommendation here is that the proposed changes as a result of the consultation be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made, etc. That the revised Conservation Area Appraisal Management Plan be adopted as a supplementary planning document, and that the proposed conservation area boundary be redesignated as, and that this supersedes an earlier one, and the 97 conservation area appraisal is rescinded. The approach to producing a local list set out in the report be approved, and the local list be agreed as set out. I just wanted to add to this, Chairman, that strategy we were also able to resolve to adopt an Article 4 directive on this particular conservation area. What that does is remove permitted development rights, which means that anybody who wants to make any alterations or construction within the conservation area must apply for planning permission. So that gives the council that area of control. So I would recommend that we adopt these recommendations as listed, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second this, and as ward member from Malton, very pleased with the report and recommend it.
Thank you. All in favour?
Agreed.
And we move on to SG 41 1702, Harleston Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan and Conservation Area Designation. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. Similar exercise as the previous one. This one done with the Harleston Village Area Conservation Area. It went out for consultation. There were a number of responses. Those have all been referenced in the proposed changes, and there will of course be the final version will have those changes incorporated, minor editorial changes, and that the revised document be adopted as a supplementary planning document, that the area boundary as set out be designated, and this supersedes the earlier one of 1997, and the local list be agreed. And again, I can report that at strategy we resolved to adopt the Article 4 directive, which removes permitted development rights as before.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Seconding. My ward, second ward. Good man.
All in favour?
Agreed.
anyway.
Yes.
Move on then to SG 42-1701, Development Resources. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, you finished the debate before I could say that the Daventry conservation area is out at the moment. And my thanks to actually a member of the public, Anne Pells, who worked tirelessly for the Town Council's design statement, which our officer has fed into that. Anyway, back to the plan. SG 42-1701 is sought for additional resources for our development related teams, and I ask the council to commend the growth of 147,000 for this purpose. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. Very much welcome this extra expenditure. Very beneficial for the development team. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded. You seconded. Right, proposed and seconded. Proposed and seconded. All in favour?
Agreed.
And then we come to SG 42-1702, delivery of the Daventry Canal arm.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, after a very frank and robust debate of the strategy involving all members that attended, not just members of the strategy group, I will be putting forward amendments to the original recommendations. I would like to give you some of the benefits before I do. Canals can deliver real, measurable economic, health and social impacts. National research has uncovered a wide range of benefits that recent canal projects have brought to communities, local economics and to the wider waterway network as a whole. Canals can deliver on strengthening the local economy through increased visitor spend, increased leisure activities, stimulating regeneration and development activity in the area. Canals can also transform places and enrich lives. Canals can bring health and community benefits, opening up walking, cycling routes through towpaths and the canal itself. The towpath would also be accessible for wheelchair users. Now, after the strategy group, which unfortunately I didn't get sight of the papers because I was in hospital trying to die, but as you will see, I failed. So the new recommendations will be as follows. Recommendation 1, that a business plan of the Daventry Canal Arm project as a whole be commissioned to include an evaluation of the amenity value and the cost benefit to be delivered. Pending consideration of the business plan by the council, approval is given to raise a capital expenditure for the canal arm, otherwise limited to 75,000, up to possibly 300,000. 2, that option 1 in relation to the deliveries of the first phase of the canal arm is approved. 3, that the approved capital programme be adjusted to include the proposed total budget of 8.715 million profiled as set out in Table 2. B, make the changes to the existing Daventry water space capital budget as set out in Table 2. 4, that the seal programme be revised as set out in Appendix A to include reimbursement of canal arm costs and make consequential adjustments. 5, that the council intention is to secure delivery of the entire canal with an inclined plane boat lift, and that planning permission for such a boat lift should be sought, along with other minor changes to the canal arm necessary to respond to the decisions of the Daventry North East Sustainable Urban Extension Developer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Chairman, may I second the proposition? Councillor Poole and I had a hand in revising the amended recommendation, which simply puts into better clarity and context what is required before a final decision is to be made. On that, I just quote two sections from the strategy report. The first at the conclusion of 411. It will be necessary by the time of business plan approval to have substantially reduced the risks that were previously identified. This seems reasonably likely, but by definition cannot be guaranteed. And then at 413, if the proposals in the report are approved, initial work on implementation will commence. As is normal, commitment to major expenditure would only occur after the Council took a final investment decision by approving the business plan for the project. Chair, I emphasise those points, principally for the benefit of those concerned, understandably, members of the public who made their contributions earlier. And indeed, I recall that the proposal the natural proposal to study the amenity value and to provide this business plan is in fact exactly what the Town Council had in mind when it, a long time ago, responded to the canal arm. Because in the Townsend division, which we talked about earlier, the response from the Daventry Town Council is reported in these words: Daventry Town Council support the canal concept and recommend a feasibility study is carried out. Now, as near as damn it, we're achieving that at the moment. Chairman, one other point. Again, members of the public who are not used to our decision-making processes may view this as a sort of departmental proposal, which comes from Councillor Poole. It goes through the process of number 10, which of course is the leader. It also goes to the Treasury, which is me. And when I saw this report, I certainly concurred with the highlighting of the financial risks that were identified within the report. And certainly there are a number of issues there which were of natural concern. And I would like to, in particular, the concept of building half a canal. And that's not attractive. We may end up building half a canal, but only if we're confident that the rest will follow. Generally, the request to Council today is limited to further progression of the vision to which we are all committed. There's further progression of the vision which hopefully will clarify the concerns that have very volubly been expressed, is an investment further of up to 300,000. So it's another 220-odd thousand above the current provision. And on that basis, I'm content to go forward. And I would simply say this one final thing. When we eventually see the report, and I hope that both sides of the argument, when we see the business case, I hope that both sides of the argument will look at it objectively, with no preconditions of it's rubbish or it's fantastic. Just look at it objectively, almost on a clean sheet of paper basis when we have it, because at that stage, that's when the principal investment decision is to be made.
Councillor Organ.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you. This vision for Daventry, it's 2004, is many years ago. Certainly, I was doing a completely different job in those days. I've only been in politics for a couple of years. But a vision is a vision, and we're still within that vision period. And I think the concern to me is that if we keep chopping and changing visions, we end up actually getting nowhere. Because how often do you revise your vision? Do you do it every 5 years, every 3 years? This is a long-term vision. And for that reason, it doesn't make any sense. It's not good business practice to do that. We have a vision, and what we need to do is to see that vision through. What's good about this particular proposal, this is a checkpoint. This is a vital, crucial time of the canal arm. And this is a checkpoint to make sure the business plan is relevant to 2017. Is this a viable project that will bring benefits and economic prosperity to Daventry district? Now, we may all have our ideas about that, but to be honest, it's all old data. What we need is new data to see what the true picture is. And once we have that, we can then make an informed decision. I, for once, if I do not think the plan is there, if I do not think it's the best thing for Daventry District Council, I won't be voting for it. And I'm one who actually likes the vision itself. But that is subjective. It's not objective. So I will be voting for this. I think it's the right way forward. Let's see what the current situation is. And then once we know what the current situation is, let's make informed decisions. Not guesswork, not thinking about the past, but what's the current situation demand us, and what is the decision we should make at this particular point. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Chandler, followed by Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make a couple of points. I thank Councillor Shepherd for reminding us that in the town centre vision, the town council at the time was fully supportive of this canal arm. I was disappointed to hear the Mayor say on Radio Northampton today that they wouldn't now support it even if it was funded by somebody else. I found that a rather disappointing path without any explanation. I also wanted to take the opportunity to point out that the business of consultation we've heard a lot about, I dare say that in the future there will be further consultation on this particular project. Remind you that consultation is not mandatory. You can't make people respond to a consultation, and also to remind people that the right to be consulted is not the same as the right to be agreed with. I've sat in many planning appeal hearings and heard people say afterwards the inspector didn't listen to us, and what they meant was the inspector didn't agree with what we said. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Chair, can I just ask a question at this stage? I would like to make a contribution to the debate later, but you'll appreciate that for some of us to be told that a proposal of this nature that has been changed since the strategy group is unusual. And I would be grateful if you just spell out a little bit more about what the changes are. Am I right in understanding that the business plan that you refer to is the business plan for the canal as originally envisaged? That is a canal that links all the way from the East Way Basin down to the Grand Union. But if we're still talking about the the limit for capital expenditure commitments, does that refer to a project that is for the short canal? And how do the two fit together? Would it not be more sensible that if we're talking about a proposal for a short canal, let's have a business plan for the short canal?
The recommendation here is that a business plan of the Daventry Canal Arm project as a whole be commissioned.
Agreed.
Right, anything further to say?
Well, in that case, I would like to respond a little bit more, and as I imagine others, to the debate and the proposal. Whether or not we are talking about now having, a business plan which was there, I assume, somewhere in the proposal that was put to the strategy group, although it wasn't actually highlighted. I would point out that a business plan can't sort of turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. I find it difficult to see what the relevance is. My interest is having a business plan that goes with what has actually been put forwards, and that is a plan for a short canal. Because until
It's the first phase of the Daventry Canal.
my interest is having a business plan for the expenditure, the budgeted amount that was proposed in the, strategy group, and for which a plan was commissioned from Big Everard for the building of a canal that is somewhat less than a mile in length. I'm not interested in talking at this stage about a canal that links to the Grand Union, because if we are going to talk about a canal to the Grand Union, the additional cost by our consultants' estimates would now be around about 15 million, and we have got no indication where 15 million would come from. I don't put any value against any of the nods and the winks that we get from Councillor Miller. If we are going to proceed on that basis, we need to have hard evidence. We have hard evidence that there are funders out there that are likely to come up with the money to make it possible. Until we have that, I think we've got to focus on all that is achievable.
Chairman, may I ask a point of order? The proposal was put forward there. It is fairly plain, it is fairly simple. My colleague, Councillor John Shepherd, has explained where we are going. We're going to do a business plan for the whole canal. That was in the strategy papers on page 313, item 5, that the Council's intention is to secure the delivery of the entire canal with an inclined plane. The only amendment is that the recommendation that the business plan is put to the fore as recommendation 1, purely and simply to explain the misunderstanding within that report. Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, I
should be seated, but it doesn't matter. Can I say finish what you're saying?
Chair, I don't find that provides the sort of clarification that I think that we need. We are in a situation where Councillor Miller and his colleagues have for a long time been talking about wanting a canal arm, the canal arm that was part of the vision. It was clear that over time the costs went up and up, and whatever chance there was of finding money from external funds to actually build this canal arm, these chances of finding the money receded. My understanding is that we are now faced with a difficulty in that the developer wants to know whether there's going to be a canal or not, which is perfectly understandable from the developer's point of view. Councillor Miller therefore has got the choice, and indeed his colleagues. He has got the choice that either you abandon your pet project that you've had for many years, or you've got to do something else that looks slightly silly and reckless, like going for a short canal. It appears that you have gone for the latter. I just don't think.
Some clarification.
You can talk about having a business plan.
Can I bring this to a halt, Councillor Ritchie? You originally interjected to ask a question of me. I answered the question, and Councillor Poole has further clarified that point, that we're talking about the entire length of the canal, the whole canal arm, as the motion is down, as the recommendation is down tonight. So I think we'll move on from you. Councillor Miller respond. No.
I protest. That is a nonsense.
You may protest, but that's enough. When we've heard Councillor Miller, we shall listen to Councillor Randall, followed by Councillor Connors.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to be helpful, actually. I'm trying to be helpful to Councillor Ritchie. What I think we're trying to do, Councillor Ritchie, is saying this, that we're making a budget line of 8.7 million. We're not spending it, because we already said on the recommendation tonight, it would be any expenditure on the canal arm in full will be subject to a business case which will be determined at a future council meeting when the full facts are known, and as I think my colleague Councillor Organ said, and I'm one of them, if the business case doesn't stack up, we don't proceed. If the business case does stack up, we will proceed. But the point about this, Councillor Ritchie, is I understand your political position here. Your party has been objecting to this all the way along the line. What we think on this side is, we think there's some real benefits if we can make this happen. So we're going to test it properly over a period of time, including external funding, including reducing the amount of public funds, if any, to actually make this happen in the longer run. And that's where this administration's viewpoint is. So what we're saying tonight is we're going to agree the additional budget up to 300,000. We're not, obviously it's a budget line of 8.7, which gives confidence to the SUE developer that we mean what we say, but we're not intending to spend any of that money until we have a full business case, which comes back to a future council meeting, and then the council will then decide with all the information, which we don't have tonight, to actually take a decision moving forward. And it will be on the basis, Chairman, of the full length of the canal.
Thank you.
Including the incline plane.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm really confused now because the reason being, how can you do a business plan on the full canal, but then in strategy, he was looking at option 1, which was the middle of the canal. Now, I don't understand it at all, and I also don't understand what we've already spent 2.1 million on, because if you go back through the year, that's what we've spent so far on this project. How can we have spent 2.1 million on a project that we haven't even started yet, and we're now going to a business plan to see whether it works? What have we done? What have we been doing? Because to me, surely, right in the beginning, a business plan would have been done to see whether it's feasible, and answered all the questions that everybody else has been asking, like, is there going to be a constant water supply? To me, that is basic stuff that should have been done right in the beginning of your 2004 vision. Because if it wasn't any good in 2004, why are we still dragging it on to 2017? So we've already spent 2.1 million, and now, to me, all you should have said in this recommendation, in that case, you had one option. Just go forward, expenditure of a business plan. That's it. When the business plan is back, then come back with the rest of it, because what's the point of adding all those extra bits in? So I would have option 1, if you're going to go down that route, which you obviously, are, I would just put, you've got to do your business plan to what you're going to spend this money on. So to me, you need maybe a business plan for the middle and then a business plan for the whole thing, because if you're going to do a business plan for the whole stretch of canal, I assume the whole stretch of that canal is all going to come to fruition together. You're not going to then put a middle bit that actually might not do anything. You end up with this stagnant ditch. Nobody else comes forward, and we've wasted another load of money. I just really don't understand it at all. I don't understand where you're coming from. I see it no different than what it was at strategy to what it was now. What is different? I don't know. Are you saying you're going to do a business plan on the whole thing, and then we're only going to fund the middle, and then we're going to wait for whatever comes? Because you've not found any funders from 2004. If it was such a good idea, you would have done. I like the question, actually, why don't you just make it a nice path? Nice pathway, exactly the same, make no difference to the developers. I just don't understand what you're saying. I just don't understand.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I'd just like to start with this, really. Obviously, many of you know I've not been with the council particularly long, and obviously when I started off, I was against this project probably pretty vehemently, really. It took me which is one of the benefits of being in the council, you get to see many different groups, and you get to interact with different people, and you get to hear their different viewpoints. And the advantage of that is you get to see the project, the vision, the full vision, and you get to see what it could deliver. I'd like to look at the positives, not for long, but just for a few moments, and really just focus on those. And all I really want to talk about is what it could do for Daventry. The real truth of it is, we, as already highlighted today, through the different things that have been discussed, there are 2 key points. The first one, that shops are closing in Daventry. We haven't really got a lot of time to try and turn this round. We have to do something quite different. The canal offers us a unique opportunity, which I'll explain why in a moment. But I do believe it will bring in a lot of businesses. Yes, there are huge concerns, and you've brilliantly highlighted those tonight. I had the same concerns myself. The thing that really struck me was the fact that these businesses that will come in, and there are many cottage industries that could spring up, will also support charities as well, as many of them do. And a very important point came out this week, actually, that's really important behind this canal, makes it really unique. But there is a report now out where in 2040 we are going to do away with cars in this country. Now this gives us a huge opportunity, actually, because they will no longer be able to transport via lorry. It will be very difficult. There isn't any facility to do it. So this means But canals and other methods will have to be sought. This doesn't mean it will be all done by canal, of course it doesn't, but there will be ways that it may be used. So for us to be connected to the canal actually does offer some opportunities. As much as we may not like it, as much as we may hate that idea, the truth is we have to think out of the box. So that is why I'm for the project, and I really do believe in the full vision, but I will hesitate to add, it has to be the entire canal for me, or I wouldn't vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I'm conscious of the fact that it's coming up to 11 or 12 minutes past 9, approaching the witching hour, at which point I need your permission to continue. Continue. Is that the wish of everyone here? Thank you. Right, next one is Councillor Osborne, and then I'll ask Councillor Richard to speak.
Chairman, I've listened to it again. I'm not talking about the good bits and the bad bits, but I've gone to my parish councils for years now and said about the canal and everything, and I've told them that no public money, well, you won't be paying rates to pay for it. We'll be looking for other money. That's what I've told them for years. So along comes a suggestion now that it's going to cost this, it's going to cost that, and we ought to get some up-to-date information on whether it'll work or not, whether it works business-wise. So that seems sensible to me, but it doesn't seem sensible to Councillor Ritchie for some reason. He doesn't seem to want it at all. It doesn't matter whether it's sensible, it doesn't matter whether he doesn't want it, and nor does Councillor Randall. She's never wanted it. And I'm sure if the business case says it's good, she still won't want it. But if the business case says it's good, I shall support it. If the business case says no, I, like Councillor Auger and many of my colleagues, won't support it. That's the position. If the Labour group, and I don't mean the three here, had have had a business plan in 1996 when they took over this council, before they made it just about bankrupt, we'd have been in a lot better position. So look out, get your business plan and act from it, not like they did all those years ago. And we had to get rid of nearly 100 staff which they employed as well. I remember it well. So get a business plan.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Unfortunately, I can't remember it. I think where many of us want clarity is that it has appeared in recent weeks, since the strategy group, that it was the intention of this council to at least consider building a bit of canal that didn't go as far as the Grand Union Canal. And if that is not the case, I would be grateful if somebody would actually tell us that that is not considered to be an option. If it's not an option, I don't understand why we commission consultants to tell us how much it would cost if it was not something that we thought that we might do. So to me, the issue is, is that something that is still on the agenda of this council, or do we along with, Councillor Connors, in saying, look, if it is only a bit of a canal, it is something that for all sorts of reasons we would say that we don't want. If you're talking about saying, let's take time to prepare a business plan for the whole canal arm, I would say that is wonderful, and of course I would, because we have been asking for a business plan for the whole canal arm, certainly for the past year. But there are some things that I would insist that we have within that we would want to see. If the business plan suggests that there would be a net cost to the people of Daventry, and I mean that in terms of money that could be used for other projects going into this, if there was a net cost, we would not regard that as being a satisfactory business plan. I accept that there might be situations in which money might need to be put in up front, but we would only regard that as being acceptable if over the course of a small number of years it was, as far as you can be certain, that money would be recouped. We also need to know that if there are estimates, we've got the estimates of what the thing is going to cost. The problem comes with the income side. That if there are estimates of income, we need to have hard empirical evidence showing how that income has been calculated. If we are talking about the number of visitors that will come, we need to know about the number of additional visitors that come, how that is going to be measured, how it can be quantified. What value are additional visitors going to be to Daventry? How much are they going to spend? And if they spend money, how much of that money actually accrues to the people of Daventry, rather than to the places where they actually spend it? If we count in as a benefit in a business plan the uplift in property prices, again we need to know how that is of value to the people of Daventry, how much comes to Daventry as a sink, how much is a benefit for for developers. We need to know too that if the plan is about having the business plan is for having a link right to the Grand Union Canal, we need to be absolutely confident that the money will be there to be found to do that. We cannot commit money for a bit of canal unless we have confidence in the whole business plan. And if we were looking at a business plan for a short canal, then we can't in that business plan assume benefits that only come if you complete the whole canal and you have the whole package.
Thank you. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair.
Qualified councillor.
Thank you. At the end of the day, I actually welcome this revision that came out of the strategy group, because the business plan is just essential if this project is going to go forward. For me, it cannot go forward without the business plan. And I understand what Councillor Richards just said and some of the other speakers. But I do expect the business plan to actually cover all aspects of it, how it works, how it's going to be paid for, how it's going to function long term, all the risks of funding, all the risks of investment, and all the other aspects of it. And I would really expect, unlike some of the other documentations that we've seen, that we do actually have sight of where those figures have come from, actual clear figures and understanding of how it's actually arrived at. And if that is the case and it goes one way, if it goes the other, then I think everyone in this room then will have an understanding of how it works and whether it's sensible and can make a rational decision on it. Because, let's face it, hands up here, I've always been against the canal. I'm not making any bones about that. But if it was proven, and I've always said this as well, if somebody can show me that it works, that it's actually sensible, then at the end of the day, I have to put my hand up and say, if it's of value to this town, then it works. But otherwise, I will not be voting for it, and I cannot do that. But I would expect the report to be clear, concise, have sensible information in it, rational information, recognised information, and maybe a suggestion from me would be that that report is actually presented by the authors of that report in perhaps a public place before it goes anywhere else. I think it's important that that report is clear and that is actually open to the public, and I would hope this council would see fit to do that and present it to the people of Daventry and the district of Daventry, so they can all have their clear view on it, untainted as it were, before any of us have got our hands on it. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Councillor Howard to speak next, and then Councillor Paul to sum up.
Thank you, Chair.
Time is moving on.
The business plan is exactly what it says in the paper, so I do struggle to understand what Councillor Randall and Richie are talking about. If you read the paper, it actually explains in very simple terms that this is a fixed amount of money to investigate. The business plan comes back with all the information that you want. It's not about the canal, it's about any business plan. It's common sense. If I don't support it, because I don't like what is in the plan, I'll throw it out as well. So I'll be joining your opinion. That's all we're asking tonight. So all the residents that you brought in, which is great to see so many residents come in, are false pretenses, I guess, from you guys, because it's only looking to see where it goes. We're going to get all the information together and then decide. Now, I am a town councillor, okay, for the district. I voted by the residents of the Southbrook and Lang Farm. And I can tell you that when I knock doors, people say to me, when? They're not saying we don't want it. They're saying to me, I'm turning around so you can see who I am, because if you don't want to vote for me, that's fine. But what I am saying is, for the last 10 years, I've been knocking on doors, and people have voted for me and my colleagues. And that's why we have so many strong-minded Conservative members who see the vision. 10 years ago, I read that vision, and I thought, I like this vision. You may well laugh, Wendy, but I did read it, I did understand it, and I took it on board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I now ask Councillor Paul to sum up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I welcome the debate. I think we know where everybody is coming from. There will be a business plan, whether I like it or not. It will be warts and all. You know, I've been talking to the likes of Knight Frank, Savills, etc., over many months, and they see the benefits, but the benefits are no good unless it stacks up financially. Also for clarity, we are looking to forward fund, possibly, if a business case stacks up, forward fund part of a project. Let's think of it as a project. We have a water space, we have a canal, we have an inclined plane. It is part of a project going forward. It will link Daventry to the country park. Not only that, it will link Daventry from the town. You'll be able to walk, cycle, do what you like, swing from a tree and go from the town all the way to Middlemore and beyond without crossing the road. It has the benefit, it has what I would call a natural health benefit, because many doctors now are prescribing go for a walk instead of me popping a pill. Lots of items have come up. Councillor Ritchie on Facebook said, you know, the Conservatives in private probably have an amendment. Well, yes, you were right, Councillor Ritchie. We did have an amendment, and it was after I looked at the papers. There are also matters of, well, there won't be enough water. I have consulted with the National Hydrology Manager, Adam Commerfield, at Canal and River Trust, who says there will be enough water in line with our studies. Chairman, I put the recommendations to you with the additional amendment for this council to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've had a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour of this motion?
You did give me a right to reply, actually.
No,
Minority of 3 members, and you did not. That is
Shameful.
No,
shameful.
it may be shameful.
And a desire of democracy, Chair.
Well, you're a person that likes to talk a lot about
I am.
democracy. Some of us don't have any right to speak at all on this matter.
Some of us aren't given a right to speak.
In this council chamber.
Shocking.
End on.
Shocking.
So I will now put it to the meeting. All those in favour of it, agree?
Agree.
Thank you. And we now move on.
Against,
All right.
please.
And I would like recorded.
3 against, and we'll record the names. We shall now move on to consider recommendations SC0417, the annual review of standards of conduct, complaint handling. Silence, please. Those who are leaving the room, please do so quietly, and we'll continue with the meeting. further on recommendation SC 0417, the annual review of standards of conduct and complaints handling 2016 to 17. Councillor Ed.
Thank you, Chairman. The localism act.
Ignorance is bliss.
Should I wait?
No, I should carry on. Carry on.
I can't hear Chairman if she does, so give us a second.
outside. Sorry, can I just make sure everything's all right? Can we all go over?
Tell me who shut the door.
Members missing.
Agreed. Wait until the council comes back.
Sorry, Chairman, they've excluded themselves by going out. We'll continue.
Yeah, carry on, might as well. Chairman, I suggest we carry on. Time's getting on.
Yeah.
We've got some important things to discuss.
Okay. Councillor Ed.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. The Localism Act of 2011 made it a legal requirement for the council to appoint at least one independent person. This council has 3 such positions where the roles are unpaid, but they can claim reasonable expenses such as travel. At the last meeting of our committee, a limited survey of other councils was put before us. This showed that most councils paid an allowance, varying in size depending on the work to be undertaken, that started at around the £300 mark per year. After a following discussion by the committee, it was unanimously decided that the following recommendation should be put before you for your approval. The recommendation is that annual payments of £300 may be made to independent persons as an alternative to travel and subsistence expenses should they so prefer. And I believe that that decision would be made at the beginning of each year. So could I ask if you would please recommend this recommendation?
Councillor Howard.
Happy to bear something else.
Agreed. Back to you. Item 10, Scrutiny and Improvement Committee Annual Report 2016-17. Copy attached. Councillor Morgan.
Chair, I rather hope this is a moment of calm in a busy city. Each year the Scrutiny Committee has to put forward a report for it to be noted. I always like to make it large writing, to make it very clear for anybody. And simple, I mean, it's all in there, it's pretty straightforward. And really, I have a call to action, and that is for members to come along. The public are very welcome to come along and make a contribution. Because the way we operate scrutiny, of course, is it really is a case of all hands on deck. And I think you're all very familiar with the model we operate. It's pretty straightforward. We like to get members in as well to actually present. At the next meeting, we'll have Councillor Guilford, she's not there at the moment, actually talking about upcoming environmental aspects and projects. And one of the highlights for the forthcoming year is that we're going to be looking at scrutiny of scrutiny, which is a bit like earlier the revisioning of the vision. So we're going to be having a look at different tools and methods. And actually, it's my call to all members that can get involved in projects, and please help with the screening. And really, that's all I'd ask you to please note it. One final point, and there is a minor schoolboy error, and it should be June 2017, which of course is when we took it to scrutiny, and not 2016. But otherwise, I'd recommend we volunteer. So, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Paul, you seconding?
Yes, sorry, Chairman, I was busy watching what was going on outside. I'm happy to second that.
Agreed.
Agreed. Councillor Miller,
I just wanted to say I want to commend the work of the S&I committee and all the people who get involved in it. I think they do an excellent job, and I think it does actually add value to this council's work.
thank you. We've received the annual report. We move on now to item 11, which is reappointment to the elected members' independent remuneration panel, copy of such report, reference, etc. I'd ask the monitoring officer, Simon Bovey, to introduce this topic.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've allocated 25 minutes for this, if that's all right with members. Failing that, the advice is quite simple. We have a member of the panel who's valued and we would like to retain him. If you're happy to reappointment, is recommended. Thank you, Chairman. Proposal a second, please.
Proposal. Propose that, Chairman.
Yeah, leave on. Seconded by Chair.
Agreed.
Item 12, Welford Neighbourhood Development Plan, copy attached with all boundaries. Councillor Chancellor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and keep this brief, but it's very important. Another provision of the localism agenda and with the National Planning Policy Framework in place was to give local communities the opportunity to develop a neighbourhood development plan, and Welford Parish Council decided to do that, and as the qualifying body they applied for the entire parish to be designated as a neighbourhood area in January 2015. That was done in May 2015 by this council, and they went ahead and produced a draft neighbourhood development plan. This was submitted, and the district council made some comments on it, and it then went for examination by an independent examiner. The independent examiner doesn't test the plan for soundness, but tests to ensure that it meets basic conditions, which are that it has regard to national policies and advice contained in guidance issued by the Secretary of State, that it contributes to the achievement of sustainable development, and that the making of a neighbourhood plan is in general conformity with strategic policies contained in the development plan for the area, and that the making of the plan doesn't breach and is otherwise compatible with European Union obligations at the moment, and that the neighbourhood development plan is not likely to have a significant effect on a European site as defined in the Conservation, Habitat and Special Species Regulation, or a European offshore marine site, and I think we can qualify for that.
I hope the tide don't come in.
Indeed. The regulations from 2012 require that the council makes a decision within 5 weeks of the receiving the report from the examiner that we should recommend for a referendum to take place. So we need to take that decision this evening. The examiner's report contained a number of recommendations for amendments, and these have been recommended and will be applied to the neighbourhood development plan, which will then be tested at a referendum, which should be carried out in the referendum area, which is the area of Welcome Parish. This is recommended by the examiner, and we are proposing that the referendum should take place on Thursday the 21st of September 2017, and that if more than 50% of those who voted the referendum vote yes, then the council will be required to make the plan, provided it doesn't interfere with any of the equality conditions to do with the European Commission. So I'm asking, Chairman, that Council accept the recommendation that the plan as amended, that we should resolve first of all that significant progress has been made in producing this, and that we welcome that effort on behalf of welfare community, that the recommended modifications be accepted, that the the modified plan should proceed to referendum, and that subject to those items, the decision statement as we've set out will be adopted, and that the cost of the referendum will be met from earmark reserve for neighbourhood development planning. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. I've got two people to speak, Councillor Organ and Councillor Evans-Swift.
I'll second it as well. Okay, so there's a job done there. Neighbourhood development plans, they're no easy undertaking. It takes a lot of endeavour, a lot of commitment, a lot of time. And when you then factor into that the fact that these are volunteers in the local community doing it, I think that one needs to be acknowledged and secondly needs to be commended. And also from the early conversations we had today about community involvement, surely this is one of the times that we as a council can listen to the community, to hear their fears and concerns, to allow them to have their own destiny within their power with regard to planning. So I commend them for what they've done. I'm glad to second it, and I'm sure we will pass this for the benefit of those residents.
Councillor Evans-Swift.
I have been a councillor for the Welfare Ward for a couple of years now, and it took quite a lot of persuasion from welfare to do it. So I will ask all the councillors, when we go to our village, and village, it's a huge undertaking, but please do remind them that if they want a bit more freedom and a bit more ceremony, they should do it. And it's also create a sense of community. And I would like to thank two persons who lead that, and it was Alan Curtis and Nicole in Westford, who really worked long hours. They had the village responding, and now I think in our ward, Richard and our ward, Councillor Auger and myself, we will have two other neighbourhood plans who are coming to get together in the near future. So please remind all councillors, carry on, ask for the neighbourhood plan for all your villages. Thank you.
Right, further proposed and a seconder. All in favour?
Agreed.
Item 13. Item 13 is the review of the housing allocation scheme, an update note. A copy is attached. At the same time, we still to deal with a recommendation SG 37-1702 from the from the previous structure. So, Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. This is to consider further responses to the consultation exercise on the proposed changes to the allocation scheme. Now, the report to Strategy Group on the 6th of July 2017 sets out in section 4.3 that the consultation was to close on Thursday the 29th of June, i.e. after the time at which the report was written. The report also notes that the consultation responses received after the report was written would be subject to a note from members. This report forms that note. At the time of writing the original report, 3 responses were received. from Belton Parish, Historic England, the Equality and Human Rights Commission. These are included in the attached appendix for completeness. Further responses have been received from Holton Parish Council and Natural England. In response to these comments, the officers are suggesting a number of changes as set out in appendix. If members are agreeable to the proposed changes identified in the table in the appendix to this update, this will necessitate the change to recommendation 1 of the strategy group report to include those changes in addition to those in appendix A to the original report. For completeness, the entire set of recommendations with the necessary changes is included in this report. I ask that it be resolved that 1, that the suggested changes to the housing allocation scheme February 2017 as set out in appendix A to the strategy group report 6th of July 2017 and those further suggested changes set out in the appendix to this update note be agreed, and 2, that the suggested changes to the housing supplementary planning document July 2016 as set out in appendix B to the strategy group report be adopted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Seconded,
Councillor
Chairman.
Osborne, seconded. All in favour?
Agreed.
Now, I have some urgent business which I need to bring forward because we would like it heard in an open session. So we'll insert item 13A. Now item 16 goes in just after 13. And we'll deal with it now, and I'll call on the Chief Executive to introduce the subject relating to the North contract.
Thank you, Chairman. Quite simply, we are ahead of the programme in dealing with North and setting up the new contract. We've got to a point now where Simon's team has worked really hard in getting all the preparatory work done, particularly on the depot side. It's the depot side this urgent business relates to. Now, if you recall back on the 13th of April, the strategy group resolved to move the limit where I have authority to spend money from 75 to 150. We are going to exceed that by some way if we carry on the current trajectory. So what I'm recommending to Council this evening is that we further extend that period, that amount, from 150,000 to 400,000. Now, principally, this will enable now North to move into the old depot on the lower part of the site in January. And having North actually in occupation on site doing the preparatory work to move up to June would be a real advantage to us. So what I'm asking for simplistically, one, obviously you've had an update as to where we are actually ahead of the programme. But secondly, what I'm really asking for is to move the limits where we can spend money prior to the business case being presented, which will come to Council on the 5th of October, to 400,000 from the 150 strategy group resolved back in April.
Thank you. I should read a proposer and seconder. Could I have a proposer?
Mr. Chairman, I propose in the absence of Councillor Gilbert who's had to just move away at the moment, and I'd just like to support that recommendation that's been put forward by the Chief Executive. I think the staff should be commended, Chairman, that we're actually making such good progress. And I think if you look at the where we are compared to, say, Northampton Borough, where we have a joint contract at the moment, I think we're very well placed. And I fully put this proposal to Council that we support the increase in the budget line as suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bunting.
I can second this if you want me to, but I wanted to ask some questions of the Chief Executive, if I may, Chair.
Yes.
In the absence of the business case, is this within the budget? And is the authority proposed solely for this single project and not a wider change to the delegated authorities?
Yes.
It is a single budget for this single project. It's only going to be association with the works to the depot. It's both the bottom side and the top side, because we're moving forward on our planning application for the top side also at the same time. So 400,000 will get us to the point where Council can come and settlement, but the budget overall is 2.5 million. So it's expenditure up to 400 out of the 2.5 million. So
I'm happy to second it, Jim.
Thank you. We have a proposer and a seconder. All in favour?
Agreed.
We now move on to item 14, at which point I have to exclude the public and press.